Tabletop gamer who keeps playing the same species over and over and over again, and you're kind of sick of seeing the word elf or like variant human at the top of your character sheet all the time. I get it, I'm on like my 13th cat person. That's why I'm excited to state that Battlezoo Ancestries finally is coming out with an answer to your problems, specifically 14 answers to your problems and counting. Living Legends is a fantastic compendium of 14 different new playable species that you can play in your games of D&D or Pathfinder, and it has so many cool species. There's everything from angels and devils all the way down to gargoyles and sphinxes. One of them is even just a swarm of tiny creatures that all coalesce into a single body. And of course there's various subspecies, hundreds of feats to choose from that are associated with your new form, plus all the hard work of world building is done for you because every species also comes with its own lore and history, so you can figure out your background and your relationship to the rest of the world. Living Legends from Battlezoo Ancestries is now available over on Kickstarter, where you can also get a bunch of fun incentives for helping back the project. There's everything from VTT tokens to help fluidly integrate these characters into a campaign, all the way up to fun peripherals like dice bags, dice sets, chalices, and my personal favorite, a plushie of a psychopomp, which is one of the species you can play. And if you want to get a good taste of what's to come, you can download the free Quick Start right away. Head on over to kickstarter.rollforcombat.com to check out these Living Legends for yourself, and unlock a treasure trove of new fun for the whole party.
And we're live.
Hello, everybody.
And look at that. I changed it. We got all ShadowDarky because it looks like ShadowDark's taking over the world. So I even changed the layout now. We're all, and look, Mike's wearing black.
Black and white.
Actually, Derek's wearing black. Mark's sort of wearing white. I'm wearing gray.
I'm wearing gray. Mine's gray.
Right. So we're kind of
ShadowDark shirt on.
No one has on any colors. It's all grayscale.
It's all grayscale. But I could actually, I wonder if I could do that. I could just make the whole video grayscale. It just turned, but everything's black and white. That's the only way you can say.
What would that look like if you changed it to that?
I don't know. I kind of want to do that now, actually.
Yeah. If it wouldn't be too
It
much
actually is not that hard, but I got enough things to worry about right now. So, like, in the middle of the video, changing the tint to grayscale is the maybe next time. Maybe. Well, Kelsey will be on in 2 weeks, so maybe I'll do it when Kelsey's on. We'll do the whole thing.
So before we get too far into it,
yes,
I just need to, just like any of the times that these happen, we need to remember when a Kickstarter does like over $1 million, then Steven will make a video called, well, whatever that Kickstarter is about, be the next D&D. The answer will be no. We may even have a person on from that Kickstarter who's like, we're not trying to be the next D&D, and we know that we won't be. And then we will have a long episode discussing it anyway. So I wanted to get started by getting us through that first point where we all agree that it will not be the next D&D.
I agree that it will be the next D&D. I disagree.
Steven, no.
There is something happening here.
I actually disagree with you, Mark. And
I mean, it's not going to be D&D, but there is something. Okay, again, not to like,
well, Gary, I agree with you too that there's something happening.
But I mean, like, I think the question, is it going to be the next D&D, is sort of incorrect. I think it is going to be. It is not going to become D&D. It is going to become the next D&D. Okay?
Yes.
And by that, I'm right. So what I mean is D&D is going to become, it's going to continue to evolve into whatever it is now, which is this like highly refined, hyper-processed sort of product that is going to exist in this very, virtual ecosystem, and it's going to just be whatever it is. And I still think that's going to be, quote unquote, the world's largest role-playing game. But I cannot stress how, if I had made a bet and I told Steven this, I would have lost so big. You could have given me insane odds, and I would have lost so big on how well this Western Reaches Kickstarter was going to do. And it is now within striking distance of the original ShadowDark.
Yep.
Kickstarter, which, I mean, that is blowing my mind. And
were you really that surprised by it?
Yes. Yes, it's a
fucking wait. Why don't we ask the guy? Why don't we introduce Michael before you go into your diatribe? Michael, who are you? I know you're from Night. Did I write Night Noon or is it Moon?
Night Noon.
Oh, it is Night Noon. I thought it was Moon.
Yep. That's Night Noon Games is my own little publishing label where I make little things, but. I think probably the main reason you asked me on here is because I freelance with Kelsey at the Arcane Library as well. So I think my title there is assistant librarian, since she is the head librarian there. So
that's nice, nice level title.
Not only is he that, no, there's another reason, because we are coming out with a Kickstarter in a few months. The Battlezoo Bestiary ShadowDark Kickstarter, where we have 3 books, and Michael is converting all of our monsters into ShadowDark for us. So I've been having a ton of fun doing that, and I'm really looking forward to the campaign. And it's really been interesting to take those monsters that were written for 5e or for Pathfinder, for other systems, and to try to distill it down into its essence, simplifying some of their abilities in a way that meshes more with the ShadowDark gameplay ethos, but still keeping that Battlezoo flavor to them, because you don't want them to just get lost in the mix as just another monster. So it's been a fun creative challenge for me that I really appreciate you giving me the opportunity for, Stephen and Mark. Oh yeah, no, you've been killing it. I mean,
I love these, and I mentioned this before because we have a discussion about the monsters, but I had been running Jeweled Indigo Isles with some of these same monsters, and I encountered a creature that had like a very esoterically background ability that was all about its story and what happened after the encounter. And I was, and that caused me to wonder. I was like, wait a minute, I haven't looked at the latest batch, but I think it was in there. But like, was that ability still there in ShadowDark or not? Because I could see why maybe you want to cut it because it has a lot of abilities, but it is sort of part of its story. And I looked, and the conversion was great. It simplified it, but it kept it in there so that if you were telling a story from your home campaign about how you fought this dragon, but then its horde actually cursed you to have something horrible happen to you, in 5e or Pathfinder, your ShadowDark person who also fought that thing would be like, oh yeah, that happened to me too. Yeah. So I really like that.
I'm glad, man. And because I think that, a lot of my philosophy around this too is to trying to be a little more descriptive rather than prescriptive. And that allows the DM who's running that monster to sort of meld it to their own game in a lot of the way that I think people really find nice in ShadowDark. And instead of just saying like, oh, if you do this, then this happens, and this happens, this happens, kind of keeping it like a little more top level so that people can take that ability or sort of take the results from that monster attack where they want to within the confines of their own table. So.
Absolutely. That makes sense.
Yeah.
And you also helped out, obviously, with the newest Kickstarter, which is another reason why you're here.
Yeah, exactly. I started freelancing with Kelsey about 13 months ago now. And that was one of the first things we were talking about last March was, okay, like, Kelsey, what's the plan? We've got to put something on the calendar. We circled March because we knew we wanted to make a big splash at GaryCon, which Steve and I know you'll be at. I'll be at. Mark and Derek, I don't know if you're going up to Lake Geneva next week.
I'll be in Las Vegas, unfortunately.
He'll be in Vegas. Mark will be working because someone's got to keep the lights on. So,
but I was sick. I mean, I still am a little bit, and I need to catch up from that and the Kickstarter that we launched. So I definitely can't go to.
Congratulations on your new Battlezoo, by the way, the launch there.
Oh yes, thank you. Yeah. I knew we'd lose a little air because of yours, but I think we lost all the air. But that's okay.
But even then, it actually made more than the last one while still being a compilation book. So I'm still pretty impressed by that.
It's actually doing better than I thought. It's definitely doing better. Well,
because the fact that it's a compilation, so some people might be like, well, I already have most of this content. If they were previous buyers, and they may not want to upgrade if they don't want a hardcover copy of it, and it's still made just a little bit more than the last project that we did, which was not a compilation. So I think that's good.
Yeah, it's doing well, and we expanded fusions, so now, Derek, you can play Voltron. Did you see that?
No, Stephen, it's a Quintron.
Quintron is what we're calling it.
Quintron is made of five
legally distinct separate entity.
It's made of five different kind of living construct animals. They're not all lions. They're different.
Yeah, one's an elephant.
Like the Megazord in some ways, right?
It's an elephant. I even got the lion in there and used the mane as the shield. If you look at the picture.
I really appreciated that little detail.
I added that. So we're adding some new fusions. We're adding some new cycle pumps. We're just, that's the most popular one, so we're adding some new. So yeah, it's going to be expanded. There's new art. It's just generally new. And anyhow, so yeah, we launched that one because people really seem to want it, and now it's doing pretty well. But we're gearing up for the ShadowDark one, which seemed seems so long ago, but it's coming up pretty soon.
Yeah, it's in just a few months now.
Just a few months where we'll be launching this one too. And
have you announced a date yet?
What?
Have you announced a date yet?
No. It's going to be May or June, depending on I got to get it all worked out in terms of timing, and also.
He wouldn't want to launch it while we were literally at PAX East, for example. But he attempted to launch this one while we were literally at Gamma.
I
warned him, and he was like, "Okay, I'll move it." I was like, "Great, move it to a couple weeks after." And he's like, "I'll move it before," but it was already close to the time, so then he couldn't hit the date of moving it before because that's what happens when you try to move back a few weeks. So then it did wind up being even more weeks after than he wanted, and on the same date as the ShadowDark one.
Yeah, but so let's go through this. There's actually a lot of things to talk about, but what did you guys think was going to happen with this ShadowDark Kickstarter? Because you guys, I thought it was Derek thought this thing might do
under $500,000,
400,000 at most.
Yep, 400,000. Yeah.
Ye of little faith, Derek.
I thought it would do. I guaranteed it. I knew it was going to do at least $1 million. I think it was going to do $1 million on the first day, but I think it was going to do $1 million.
But to be clear here, this isn't a new. I get it. People are very flash in the pan. Now listen, Steven has been saying, I've seen it. Okay. In fact, I know because when we were at Origins and I got roped into running ShadowDark, and I never read or purchased or did anything for ShadowDark, and Kelsey was like, "Oh, you're running my game," and I was like, "Yeah, I've never played it before." She's like, "You'll do great then," and I was like, "I don't own the game because it was all sold out." And Kelsey was like, "Oh, I feel so bad for that," and she's like, eventually she gave me a copy, which was very nice of her. But I was like, "Okay, all right, game's sold out." And I went to Gen Con, and there was a lot of people playing ShadowDark, and Steven kept being like, "Oh, every time I go to a con, there's all these people playing ShadowDark." But there are a lot of Kickstarters. A lot of people will buy the system. A lot of people will buy. People's shelves, like my own, are full of just, the system that came out and nothing. They never bought another thing after it ever again. How many people own Avatar Legends?
Say Avatar is the best. Best one.
And how many people? How many people own Avatar Legends but don't own
the next one?
Right. There's a ton of people that own this, but how many people own these? And the answer is few. Right. A lot fewer. So. In my mind, that was where ShadowDark was at. It had its people that played it, and then it wasn't going to go beyond that. So for the campaign setting, which is, I understand it's expansion, but is essentially a functional reprint of the first 5 zines.
The first three. The first three.
To do on pace to do more than the original is crazy. Because that means
I've got to correct you there, Derek. There's 3 totally new zines that are included in this.
Yes,
and then there's an entirely new setting book.
Sure. Yes. It looks awesome. It's amazing. I'm going to get the full slipcover. I'm just saying.
he's like, oh, I can't believe it's so good. What's the highest tier? I'm backing it now.
Cloth player map. I'm fucking in. Let's go. It looks amazing.
Derek, if it glowed in the dark, you would be out, though, right?
If it glowed in the dark, I would be out. Well, also because that would be very
ShadowDark, but you wanted to, baby.
No, that would be very against brand.
No, that's true. Because then, if you're in the dark, you shouldn't be able to see anything.
Correct.
If anything, you know what it should? It should give you blackout goggles, like goggles you wear that are just all black, and that way, when the light goes out and you have to do combat, everyone has to put on the goggles, and then they can't see. And so there you go. That's more realistic.
So while I clearly understood that this game had more of a groundswell than, say, Avatar Legends, which again I love, but I'm dumbstruck. I can't believe how much it's done and that there's this much support for it. And
so Derek, you were at 3 or 400,000.
Yeah.
So Mike, what were you and Kelsey thinking?
Yeah, when we were up at 5:15 yesterday morning and getting ready to hit that button and making sure there were no typos on the page and all that, we were talking about it, and I was in the 500,000 to $750,000 range, and I think $1 million, we'd be lucky if we were flirting with $1 million, and I think Kelsey was in the same boat as me. Of course, you can talk to her about it next week and get her exact thoughts. But I think she was being a little more conservative than I was, just because the Kickstarter for the actual rules always seems to do better than when you're expanding it the second time. And so, I don't think any of us expected really to get as high as we did, and certainly not being like the fifth Kickstarter to TTRPG Kickstarter to break 1 million in its first day, which is just bonkers. It was nuts to see how people came out. And I think if people are looking to replicate that, we were kind of talking before the call about the community that Kelsey has built, but also how many books she has been selling between the first Kickstarter and now. There's a ton of people who just saw the success of that, and after the fact bought the core rules and just don't have any of the zines, don't have any of the accoutrements that you might get with the core rules. And so I think we're seeing a lot of those people come out in force. I saw someone in the comments, I have them over here, mention they think that it's a lot of new people because the average pledge is $200. And I don't think that I can share this, because if you go to the Kickstarter page and you can see how many people backed each tier, I mean, the newcomer tier, I think it's sitting at like 10% of pledges, which frankly is shocking to me. I thought that if we wanted to really blow up with this campaign, we were going to have to see more new people coming in from, fifth edition, more new people coming in from other corners of the OSR. So it's been great to see that really this has been driven by our community that has been built up over this time. And it feels like the sky's the limit right now, but really these next 25 days are going to kind of define where the Kickstarter goes. Because if you look at like recent OSR Kickstarters, like the recent Pirate Board campaign or Dolmenwood, I think that they both did such a great job of engaging their audiences and getting people pledging on the first day. But because so many people came in so early to the campaign, they were very heavy early on in the campaign with the pledges. So instead of seeing that 3x that you usually see with a Kickstarter campaign, you were seeing like 2x. So hopefully word gets out there and more people are interested in the game and come out to pledge who aren't familiar with the game. And I think that's really what we need to do in the campaign if we want to get it up to how big it could potentially be, if that makes sense.
Yeah, so Derek had the lowest expectations, and Mike and Kelsey were higher. Steven was higher still. He thought 1 million. I actually, it turns out, I guess, had the highest expectations out of anyone here, even though I was also the first to say it's not going to be the next D&D, because I was so deeply impressed at the Ennies when ShadowDark beat out Pathfinder in a popularity contest of, can you get your community to go online and vote for this? That indicated to me that this is not just like this is not Avatar Legends. This is a deeply engaged community. So I actually expected $1 million on the first day, but I also so I was right about that. So let me make another prediction so I could be wrong about the next one. I predicted like you said there, Mike, a Dolmenwood-esque, like, lots of people come in on the first couple of days because the community is so engaged that it's top heavy, and that the latter half is gonna be like, it's not gonna get your 3 or 4 times as much like some other Kickstarters do. So let me be wrong about that and watch it blow up and become even huger. But that is more what I was thinking that we were going to see here, because ShadowDark is the real deal. ShadowDark, I don't think, is the next D&D, because D&D has just become the Kleenex. It is the brand name that will never die. It will have just become so associated with the genre that it cannot be supplanted. But ShadowDark has become, when you're asking, will it be the next, you can ask, will it be like the next Pathfinder, or name anything other than D&D that is a big, successful, like, next tier brand. And I think you're saying that ShadowDark has the community and the power to, that the sky's the limit there. like for where it could go, other than that no one will ever be D&D because it's D&D.
Yeah. So what I meant by that when I talked about that is like I meant like how in the 80s, you know, where, you know, the average American or whatever was sitting in their bed, you know, playing, you know, Life or Monopoly, right? You're like, oh, we're in the basement playing Dungeons and Dragons and we're getting weird and creepy in the dark, right? D&D now is Parcheesi. You know, D&D now is Trivial Pursuit. D&D now is Clue, Battleship, Monopoly. It's aesthetic, it's sanitized. It's just very, you know, it's something you do in the daylight. So when I say ShadowDark is the new D&D, I mean it's the you know, the trove of weirdos sitting in the dark being like, oh yeah, we're the weirdos. Oh, you guys are playing D&D? Loser popular people. We're playing ShadowDark. We're the cool outsiders who are, you know, delving into dungeons and getting weird with it.
So you mean like a vibe successor as opposed to a supplanter?
Correct. Like,
okay, I see that. I see that.
What I mean is like, well, and this is the part that really honestly blows my mind, which is, you know, I don't have to, well, maybe I have to tell Mike, but you know, I love dungeons. You know, I'm running several Torchbearer campaigns for my, you know, for some of my patrons, and you know, I've done multiple things about mega dungeons, and I love dungeons and dungeons. You know who doesn't love dungeons? Everyone else, right? Like the modern aesthetic of RPGs. If you look at like where things have gone, is, you know, inventory and encumbrance is lame. Tracking torches is lame. Tracking rations is lame. I want to talk about my feelings. I want to talk about my character growth. I want to sit there in the inn and I want to role play in character for 3 hours. And oh my God, what's a dungeon? You know? And so ShadowDark is all of it. ShadowDark has XP for treasure, for God's sakes. And so like, I don't. So who are these people? And Dre in chat was like, ShadowDark's darker themes resonate with elder millennials and Gen X Kickstarter backers, but it's missing Gen Z's preference for lighter, more inclusive fantasy, limiting its mainstream growth potential. Which I kind of thought, but I'm like, but
I disagree.
But no, well, no, that's what I thought. But I'm like, but then where are these people coming from? Because if you're an older millennial or you're a Gen Xer, why are you playing this game? Why aren't you just playing Moldvay Basic? You know, or why aren't you playing, you know, OSE?
I love that you have all these props handy, Derek. It's so great.
I know Derek's literally just pulling them off. Like he has someone on the side who's just like waiting to give him these books. That's, by the way. Or like,
maybe you always wanted to play BXD&D, but you missed it when it got published. So you got the original OSR, which was Labyrinth Lord.
Oh my God,
the original reprint. So and here's the crazy thing: I didn't pull these out for this show. I literally pulled these out because somebody was asking a question about BX and ShadowDark, and we were, because of the Kickstarter, and I was like thinking about it, and I was like kind of like and I had brought these out to like bring to the coffee shop, and I was just gonna like look through them all and kind of get a sense of a vibe of how they were of gelling. But yeah, so I already had these pulled out, which is crazy. But anyways, I don't know how ShadowDark is successful when we live in a world where people seem to hate dungeons.
I mean, I think you're selling the system a little short, Derek, if you think ShadowDark is all about dungeons. And I think that's a sort of a myth that Kelsey's worked hard to dispel, and the community has too. You know, I've been in I did a 9-month campaign in ShadowDark that had plenty of overworld play, hex crawling, and I'm currently I'm 20 sessions into running an OSR module, the Valley of the Flowers, which also won a silver Emmy, I believe.
I have it right here.
Yeah. It's great, man. It's excellent, dude.
Look at that. I was able to pull mine up.
And there's a handful. There it is. God, I should have brought more props.
I know. Come on. Where's your props, man? I'm like, we're all prepared. Where's yours?
That adventure is, absolutely excellent. And it's mostly about, going to towns, going overworld. There are some dungeons in there, of course, but nothing like the mega dungeons or anything like that.
To be clear, when I say dungeon crawling, I also am including hex crawling in that. You know what I mean? Okay. Like I just mean like the modern aesthetic of, we're big bad heroes. We don't worry about the minutia. We go in, we kick in the door, we fight for the good fight. We level up via milestone, right? And the princess is in another castle, and it's this, chain of events that leads us ultimately to a big bad evil guy where the GM is going to fudge to make sure it's a close fight, but we beat him in the end and we save the day. Right, like that's the modern arc of the RPG, right? The Critical Role experience. I don't know. I didn't watch all Critical Role 3 seasons, but I'm guessing they didn't have an extended sequence of hex crawling or dungeon delving in any of their campaigns.
I'm going to tell you why this is succeeding. You ready? We have a super chat, but
We have two, I think.
We have two.
But we'll get to it after.
we'll do real quick. Are you ready? So, it comes down to generational angst and how this works. So in the 80s, we had everything was happy-go-lucky, and it was the go-go fun 80s, which, to be honest, I'd say the last 10 years of D&D has been the go-go 80s of happy storytelling and everything is okay and everything's going to be great. But then in the 90s, we got grunge, we got Nirvana, and we got all that. And ShadowDark is now the grunge era, where people are getting older. The Gen Zers are getting older, and they're turning into, life is getting hard, and they're rebelling because not everything is happy and flowers, and they want to be a little gritty. And that's kind of where we're at. I think I think the success yes, right place, right time. There's a lot of that, but it's also a very good game. Like, I played ShadowDark for the first time last year, and I've played a billion of these games, and there was something about it. I don't know what, I don't know how. There was something about it. I mean, I've talked to Kelsey about it. In my opinion, it's basically if Dungeons and Dragons First Edition was written today. That's what it feels like. It feels like D&D First Edition, but with a lot of the edges sanded off. And that's not a bad thing, because D&D First Edition's insane. Like, it's impossible to play today. Like, you would blow your brains out trying to play that. You would have to spend 100 hours just to learn the basic rules of the most basic things. It's back then we liked to do that because we also had nothing else to do, and there's no internet and no video games. All right,
what is your weapon speed factor? Okay,
exactly.
You're going on.
We had nothing else to do. Literally,
you're going on segment 6. I'm going on segment 4. Yeah. Don't forget your surprise, but modify your surprise segment modifier by your dexterity surprise modifier, which is negative.
And we need to make sure your weapon is compared against our armor type so that we can figure out the...
Right, you're using a spear versus chainmail, and I'm wearing banded splints, so clearly we got a different modifier.
No, but seriously, like when I was a kid, no internet... No cable TV, okay? Even that was rare. So people only had 5 channels on their TV. It wasn't like, oh, let's go see a movie. No VHSs, no DVDs. The only thing you could do was listen to the radio, go to the theater. Going to the mall was starting to become a thing. Ride my bike, I used to do that. And go to 7-Eleven. Boy, did we used to hang out at that 7-Eleven a lot. And play D&D. That was it. There was nothing else to do. There's no computers, no video games. It was just, Atari 2600 was starting to get popular, but it was that was it. So you would spend hundreds of hours because you had them, but it's just too much. But ShadowDark is fast. It's gritty. It's grungy, and you can pick it up very quickly. And it's just the right amount of complexity and darkness, and it's also fun. It's just a fun game. But
when you ask if ShadowDark's the next D&D, I think first you have to define what D&D is, because it just means everything now. But if you kind of want to go back and look at, 4th edition, you've got sort of a 13th age, right? Is sort of like the iteration of 4th edition. You have Pathfinder, which came from 3.5, and I just feel like you don't have a modern sort of BX variant. And I'm sure people are going to at me because there's other ones out there for sure, but there hasn't been a system that's really taken the BX style gameplay into the sort of, into the mainstream in such a way that ShadowDark has. And so I feel like if you want to ask, is it going to be the next D&D? It can be the next D&D. That it can be the next version of that D&D, because now there's a million versions of it.
Well, I think that is so accurate because, and I've never, I can't remember what I read in various books, but I believe at certain points in the 80s, right, the Moldvay or the Menser or even the Holmes box sets were outselling AD&D. Mm-hmm. So I think that this spiritual is the spiritual successor to that. I can't believe, Kelsey, if you're watching, how is there not a ShadowDark starter box set?
Well, I'm glad you asked that and said that, because guess who's coming out with not 1, not 2, but 3 ShadowDark box sets? That will be a starter set, because the Battlezoo Bestiary ShadowDark that's coming out in a few months, this will be designed as basically a starter set where you will get your book of the Battlezoo Bestiary, which will have monsters, classes, maybe even new races, items, spells, the monster part system, all in here. And then it's going to come with pre-gens. It's going to come with adventures, maybe pawns. We're probably looking at pawns, and this. And all you need to start playing is one of these box sets and the ShadowDark rules, and you're ready to go. And then you can play an adventure. And it'll take and we're going to actually design it so that it is very easy. It's like you can almost pick up and play it with maybe looking at the rules for 10 minutes, and that's it. And I'm going to have 3 different ones. We'll have like the basic one, which will be based on monsters. We'll have Strange and Unusual, which will be based on weird stuff. And then Elemental Storm, which will be based on elements. And each of these will be self-contained. So we are going to come out with a pseudo starter set. Like, basically, that's my goal. But
should I get us through our 3 super chats that we are in debt for? So we have one that just did the best tier, the heroic bundle for RFC from Mark T.
Yes.
For $2. Caldaria Q for 5 said, on a scale of 1 to 10, keep on the Borderlands, how good is the Valley of the Flowers? And it's unclear whether the 1 to 10 keep on the Borderlands is putting the 1 or the 10 as keep on the Borderlands. I think they're putting the 10. And Kevin for $5 said, can I introduce you to the Shucked Oyster? That is one messed up in. So of those, the one that is a question is the middle one. Mm-hmm. For you, I guess, Steven, since you brought out the Valley of the Flowers.
It's different. It's not even comparable. It's like a baby Dolemwood. That's what this is like Dolemwood, but it's like a fifth of the size. That's the closest analogy to this. It's nice.
Also very, like Arthurian inspired too, which is a lot of fun if you're going for that kind of vibe.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, but it's completely. It's Dolemwood. It's just a very smaller version. Like if you look at the map, I mean, I have it here.
I mean, I'm all for Arthurian vibes.
Oh yeah. No, I mean, look, you can see like here. It's like that's very Arthurian, you know.
Oh yeah. Like the art there, you could easily see that.
Yeah. And look at that. Even
or
that's
it looks like
it's very Pendragon-esque.
Yeah, it looks like was it Waterhouse's painting of the Lady of Shalott a little bit?
Yes.
Something like that.
The thing I love.
I was going to say the Shucked Oyster, by the way, I don't have the Shucked Oyster, but I know that is also messed up. That's kind of like a Valley of Flowers type book, by the way. I don't have it yet though.
The Shucked Oyster?
Yeah.
I think that's a Black Lodge Games one. Isn't that a ShadowDark module where they introduce like brothels and things like that?
What's it? Yeah. It's like it's brothels, but is it actually for ShadowDark?
Yeah, I think at least they released a ShadowDark version of it. I don't know if it was first for another.
Oh, I thought it was just like let's see. It is Black Lodge. It is for it's OSR and it's OSR and ShadowDark, so it's both. Yeah. No, I do know that one is more of NPCs. Yeah, 264 pages, mechanics, NPCs, carousing system. 20 full roster of 20 lovable and surly prostitutes.
Again, I cannot stress enough how anti zeitgeist this game is. Maybe that's its appeal. I believe in the Kickstarter. I believe in the Kickstarter.
That's the point.
I mean, this is something that should only appeal to like me. I think in the Kickstarter, right? There's like a pad of like 100 character sheets so that you could just rip them off as you burn through them. Nobody wants that. They want their special snowflake character that's going to go all the way to level 20. Yes,
not
they do.
Anymore. No,
Steven, yes, they do.
Wrong. Not the ShadowDark place, because I play in ShadowDark games.
It's a different set of
people die and they're happy.
So who are these people?
Michael, who are these people?
I mean, there's however many thousands of them on that campaign, but it's people that are just it's people that want a different gameplay experience, I think. It's people that want things that are streamlined. I think that is like the big selling point for people coming over from 5e is that those, the roll high on a D20 mechanics really were adapted well into ShadowDark. And so if you're a 5e player or a Pathfinder player, it's nothing to pick up ShadowDark. I think that the fact that you can run quick games with it, that it goes around the table, like we've all played enough Pathfinder in 5e to know that, You know, you have a few people around the table, and sometimes you're literally waiting 20 minutes between your turns when you're in combat. And people don't want that. You know, they want to have a fast-paced game that you can get through not just battles, but also story and dungeon crawling more quickly than you do with the other systems, which, you know, I would call more bloated.
Yeah, in fact, I'm going to say the difference between ShadowDark and other OSRs, because, like, okay, so DCC is obviously extremely popular, but DCC is very much first edition approach of tons of tables and tons of rolling, endless tables, and so is OSR. Old School Essentials is like, these are all going to, we'll make it old, and by making it old, we put in lots of tables and we put in lots of rolling. But ShadowDark is the only one that I've really seen and I've also seen the ones that are streamlined, but they're in my opinion too streamlined. But this hit the sweet spot of there's tables and there's rolling, but there's not too much.
Well,
okay, it doesn't go crazy.
ShadowDark is 5e without skills, feats, or detailed combat rules.
Right.
Yeah. But like, here's a weird compliment for ShadowDark, which, like, I think if Kelsey remembers from the first time that she was on the channel, I mentioned it too, which is that Steven often will ambush me with a topic of a new RPG that is going to be on the show like the next day and send me the PDF of it. And I want to make sure I've completely read.
I haven't done that in a while.
That RPG. That's only because we haven't had a new RPG on in a while. But so I've done it enough times that I've kind of gotten used to it, so I can compare it among different RPGs. And ShadowDark, not only did it have more pages than some of these other RPGs, but it took me way less time. In fact, he gave me way less notice than usual for ShadowDark, but I was still able to read it almost just as we started the call with Kelsey and going into the stream and understand it. When some of the other RPGs that we had were like 1/3 the number of pages of ShadowDark, but they did have, like Steven said, these tables, and you needed to understand how that table went into this table, went into that other table, if you really wanted to know what was going on. Whereas in ShadowDark, I knew what was going on so quickly. I didn't need to read every single monster in the monsters. That's why, even though there were a lot of pages, I didn't have to go through all of them. And so the organization structure that Kelsey used and the explanation style were so strong that if you are ambushed by your boss being like, you need to go on the show as an expert game designer to talk about this, here it is, it's in 2 hours, you can do it too.
Well, you know, there's a reason she won Best Layout and Design at the Ennies, and it's not because of the fans, it's because, you know, before you get to the fan voting, the judges do have to say, yes, this would be worthy of this award. So
you have to be in the top X, which X, however many were nominated, and then it is 100% because of the fans past that point. But if you're not actually a great layout and design, you won't be nominated. You won't be in the top X.
Yeah, and that, you know, to go back to kind of Derek's idea and to tie it in with these tables that we're talking about, Derek's idea of, you know, this is not what we think of modern gameplay being, the storytelling and being attached to your character so much. I think that the type of OSR gameplay, the generative storytelling, where you're rolling on those tables to kind of discover what's going on, really helps GMs not to get attached to their ideas, because they know that one roll of the die can upend it in a way that it just can't happen with 5e or Pathfinder, because, you know, you're discovering that story with your players. And I think that if the GM doesn't have a specific sort of story in mind that they could be, you know, leading the players to, the players are also going to see that and appreciate it as well, if that makes sense.
Yeah. By the way, someone asked about the art. So that art is from my book, from the Battlezoo Bestiary books. Like, we actually are going to have a lot of OSR art, and that's from Stefan Pog, and he does a lot of the DCC art. He does a huge amount of the DCC art. But I'm getting him to do more art for us. But we are getting a lot that out of weirdness. My very first book, the Battlezoo Bestiary, has I wanted to do, can't find it, where is it? Here it is. I wanted to do a combination of old school and new school when I made this. This is the first book we ever published. And right away, you get a 2-page spread of Stefan's, like, old school art. And then on old sidebars, we have his old school. So I actually did that. I wanted to sort of do a bridge between old school and new school when we did this book. And no one was really doing this at the time. It was either one way or the other, and I had both. Who knew that 5 years later, that would definitely come in handy, because ShadowDark came around, and what a coincidence, I happened to already be doing this style, so it actually worked out really well. So we're using a combination of what we already did. We're just we're leaning heavier into the old school than the new school. So, and by the way, what's your opinion? So some people are a little upset because the monsters are color in our ShadowDark books. The rest of it will be black and white. And I showed it to Kelsey. Kelsey 100% approved the layout. She thought it looked great. She likes it because the monsters pop on the page, and everything else is black and white. We still do the other stuff. I tried to turn them black and white, but they just look blah. They look very bold. They look bad. They just don't look good. And believe it or not, getting them redrawn, no artists. The OSR artists I spoke to, they didn't want to do it because they didn't want to take someone else's art and redo it. So it's not like, just find someone else. I couldn't. They
thought it was disrespectful, right, to the original artist.
Yeah, a lot of them refused. They did not want to do it, so I didn't even bother. I'm like, okay, this is not realistic. So I just did the layout, and it is going to have some color in it. But it's going to be very much an old style. It's going to be very much a ShadowDark book. And the only reason I'm going to have both the black and white cover without like the words on it. But I need to put, because we're not official ShadowDark, I do have to put this on there because we're not official ShadowDark. So I have to put the design to use with ShadowDark logo according to the rules. And I'm going to be selling this at retail, and at retail, I can't be putting out a book with no logo or words on it. I need something. So this is the retail version, but there will be a special version for people who want it to be and look exactly the same as ShadowDark.
You mean like ShadowDark?
You mean this wouldn't sell on the shelf in a retail version?
Nope. You can't. You actually can't. It's not allowed. It doesn't have the right. You need to actually have certain things on it to sell.
There's no ISBN or anything.
Yeah, there's nothing. The only way you could sell that, what they do is you wrap it. You basically make a fake cover and then you wrap it and you sell it. That's how they do it.
That's what you have to do.
Yeah.
Go down to Brooklyn, Stephen. Go to the 20-sided store, and you'll find ShadowDark just like that on the shelf.
That is, you're right. At small stores you can, and I do know the 20. Yeah, I do know, like the small stores can sell it because they know what it is and they can put it in manually. Runehammer has it. A few of the small stores, but if you wanted to get it into Alliance or Diamond, you can't. It's actually, they won't take it because it has to have certain things. So, anyhow. Because some people are asking why you guys do in color and why do you have words on it? How dare you? I'm like, because kind of need words. It's like, we want to sell this other places.
We literally need to have that logo. It is
and we need the
obligation
logo.
to
You know what's another reason that I'm surprised ShadowDark, I mean, again, it's just a minor thing, but it's like, it actually is the reason why I didn't have, because I don't remember what was going on, but I didn't kickstart the original ShadowDark. But I didn't have it for a long time, and the answer was because it wasn't on Drive-Thru RPG, right? Oh. So it's like I'm not saying that I mean it's like an uncalculable barrier to have to go to Arcane Library and buy it, but it's like there are so many things about this that would make me go, oh, and so that it'll never, no, you have to come to my website and you have to buy it from my website and you have to make a special account with my website in order to buy this, and it's like, to me, these are just extra hurdles in an industry where people don't want to do anything. So,
I mean, you guys, that's a great question for you guys to tell me about next week, because, I think she'd be happy to share her philosophy around why that is.
I know her. I've talked to her about this in detail.
Well, I mean, I think it'd make for a great conversation, especially people out there who are interested in, kind of the behind the curtain stuff when it comes to RPG publishing. Mm-hmm. But, I think that it's been okay for her not to be on Drive-Thru RPG. I really think
it's really hurting her bottom line a lot. Yeah.
Really
Oh, another $1 million. Hey, at least the good news, Stephen, is she's buying dinner at Gen Con.
That's true.
That's
We
the
have a rule that whoever
That's
has
the
the $1
rule.
million Kickstarter has to buy all of our food.
That's right.
And 2 years ago it was her. Last
Right,
year
it was Alan.
Alan.
It was Dungeon Coach.
And then this
Yeah.
year will have to be Kelsey again. On her birthday, no less.
Right.
Actually, she
Oh,
bought
man.
dinner for her birthday 2 years ago. So
That's right. She and I are Gen Con birthdays. Not the same day, but very, very close.
I found out this last Gen Con that Luke Stratton, creator of Pirate Borg, has the same birthday as Kelsey.
Oh, yeah, we know Luke. Yeah.
No, I think I remember him saying that when he was on this show as well, and we were like, wow, yeah, we're all in the same general area, and those two are literally on the same day.
Yeah. That's this Gen Con, I think this is going to be it. This might be the one that breaks everyone's brains. Derek, are you actually going to go?
Maybe.
Why is it going to break? Why is it going to break brains, Stephen?
Because I felt like there was always 2 years ago, people were coming back. That was because 3 years ago was the COVID one, and I went to that one. It was like beyond dead. It's actually, I liked that one. Like, I liked that no one was there. It was actually quite nice. It was quite nice. It was like literally no one there. It was actually quite beautiful. 2 years ago, people were still coming back, and then you heard how crowded it was. And then last year, it sold out, which has never happened. It wasn't like the 4 day sold out. Everything sold out. Everything. And that's never happened in the history of Gen Con. Because D&D is now fully released, there's been a shadow over both Gen Con and the industry for the last 2 years of D&D. And last time, remember, Derek knows, D&D was releasing the Player's Handbook in limited numbers at Gen Con. And that was like the big thing. You had to go early. It was like, there was always something about D&D was just always sort of lurking out there. It was like, it was sort of hanging over Gen Con. But this will be the first Gen Con where, okay, D&D is done. It's been released. ShadowDark is now embedded. DC 20 might even be out. Daggerheart will be out. So, like, there's going to be a lot of these big Kickstarters that came out right after the OGL that now they're all out and being played. So it feels like, okay, whatever you want to call this, like the next generation is like, okay, go. Like, this will be the first Gen Con
here's my question
where
for you,
everything is going.
So,
Yes.
Steven,
Yeah.
you're making this very sweeping story about the tabletop RPG industry
Yes.
and the games that are out for Gen
Yes.
Con. But is that going to have that big of an effect on Gen Con, given that there's also a bunch of other stuff at Gen Con too? There's card games, there's the board games. Those take up a lot of space at Gen Con on their own.
Oh, I'm just talking about within our circles. I'm not talking about.
I thought you said it was going to be blowing off the seams in general.
Oh no, I'm talking about the
number of people.
No, I'm talking about the TTRPG circles that we hang out with.
Understood.
Like our people. No, yes, I right. Like if you're into if you're into collectible card games, Lorcana last year was like the big thing that blew up. So no, there's subdivisions within the Gen Con world, but in the TTRPG world, and keep in mind, and you and I know this, TTRPGs are probably bigger at Gen Con than any other gaming convention. It's definitely like bigger than PAX East, bigger than PAX West, bigger than PAX Unplugged, bigger than Origins. Like this is the king of the TTRPGs is Gen Con. So
yes, it is the king for TTRPGs, but TTRPGs are not the king for Gen Con.
Correct. You're right, but it is the king.
Yes.
Yes, you followed my logic there, by the way. So yes,
100%.
So because if you want to play TTRPGs, Gen Con is the place to be.
So if that's the king, we had Gary Con in a week and a half.
Gary Con is
Gary
Con only has 3,000 people.
Gary Con's the third cousin from West Virginia.
Yeah, no, it is.
Gary Con is like the royal mausoleum.
Yeah.
Where you can go to pay your respects to like the first king of the line.
Yeah, I guess that's true. Is Gary Con? I've never been, and I've wanted to go.
This is my first time, by the way.
Yeah, I wanted to go even the first year they did it. But I mean, I wonder if there's not a bit of a not a cult, a bit of a cult to personality there. It's kind of this homage to all things Gygaxian, who obviously has his supporters and his haters.
Yeah, I mean, Well, it's only 3,000, so it's not that big a convention. I mean, that's pretty small.
I mean, that's a lot of people, Stephen.
No, it's not.
No.
Not for conventions. That's
But I mean, but
What?
it is though.
it's not.
But it is though.
No, it's not. No,
Yeah, it's not compared to, I don't know, the Las Vegas rodeo show or like Gen Con. But I mean, like getting 3,000 people to go to a nothing burger convention so that they can all play old school games is pretty crazy.
Yeah.
I'm playing all new school. So.
ShadowDark is the third. There's the third most games out of any system at Gary Con this year.
What's number one and number two?
Let me look it up. I had it.
I mean, I assume it's
somewhere.
D&D,
I think
but
it was I think 5e was one, which really surprised me, and DCC might have been 4. Give me 2 seconds to look that. I'll look it up in a second. But
all right.
I really feel like we're coming out in full force. We being my role at the Arcane Library, and Kelsey is coming out in full force for that one. We're going to be a vendor there for the first time. We're a sponsor there, and I feel like with this Kickstarter that's going on right now, and with that being Kelsey's hometown con, since she grew up in Wisconsin and she's been going there for a long time, I feel like this is going to be sort of a coronation for her, as just sort of the queen of the OSR at this point, because it's the amount of love that she get. That I went with her last year, and the amount of I went there last year, not with her, but she was there. The amount of love she got from everyone there was just incredible, and I know they're going to be over the moon to see the success she's had, because she's, if you know her or have seen her, she's the kind of person that people want to support. She just has that sort of...
Oh, she's incredible. She's like one of the nicest, most genuine people. She deserves everything. Like, she's intelligent and kind and sweet and killer, and like she's all the good things. I mean, it's credible. I mean, I was nothing but impressed. I mean, I know a lot of people like to suck up to people who are on the hype train or whatever, but Stephen knows I don't give a shit about anybody. Like,
everyone on this show knows that Derek would not do that. He will
Right.
he will in fact be more likely to want to be a little bit contrarian, and if
Yes.
people are going too much on a hype train, he'll want to give the devil's advocate.
Absolutely, Mark. Like, I'm like, this person is a nice person, but everyone's being too nice to them and they don't deserve it. I'm gonna be a jerk to them.
So when Derek goes onto the hype train, you know that person is like the nicest person ever.
That's the reason, Mike, that I'm a frequent guest on this show, because I hate all bestiaries, and I did a review of our Roll for Combat's first bestiary, their Battlezoo, and I liked it. I didn't like all of it, but I liked most of it. And it was like, everyone's like, wait, Derek likes a bestiary? What is going on? This is nonsense. This is crazy.
The same one that Michael's converting now.
That's
Yeah.
excellent.
Right.
Also, I'm sure.
But
Derek
how are you going to convert two rope golems?
Well, I hate to break it to you, but Elemental Storm has even more of that, because I guess I should have done a little more proofreading. There's like 2 elemental conductors. Like, there's literally 2.
Yeah, there were. That's why, I mean, and it's not a proofreading thing, Stephen. They both won.
I know.
We had to put them in.
I know.
So therefore, Linda wrote a sidebar or an extra information in one of them that was like, well, because here's the thing. One of them is, they're both ghost conductors. One of them is an evil, it's like an evil, like critical conductor who his ears bleed if your music is bad. He thinks you're bad and he wants to attack you. The other one is like, everyone can play music, and he kind of mind controls you to make you perform.
Yeah.
And so the guy who's very critical and only wants to hear the best music actually hates the other guy, because he gets people who aren't good to perform. And whereas the other guy's like, no, I like you, man, even though you're so mean.
And
This is some deep lore we're getting into.
Well, we have the animated orchestra too, and from Stranger Than Usual, we have the curtain caller, which is an animated curtain. So if you want to do an adventure in a haunted, like, music hall, we got the monsters for you, baby. Like, we had nothing but monsters.
Steven, did this not occur to you when we did the newsletter and we had the story about where they went back to the music hall where the dueling conductors were fighting each other? They were the 2 different monsters, and then they got attacked by an animated orchestra there? Because I knew that we had all those, so I put them into our stories.
I didn't actually think that through, but you're right.
Okay. So we got another super chat from Itsy Bitsy Spider Productions that said, little gamers have grown up. They want the gritty truth, not the pretty lie. They're bored with 5e and are slumming it in ShadowDark.
I just want to know, is the ShadowDark book going to have 2 rope golems
Yes,
in it. That's
yes, everything gets converted.
And your favorite, the mechanical concierge.
the mechanical maitre d' or whatever.
Oh, yeah,
I love the mechanical maitre d'.
Hate it.
I love
so
that's one of my favorite. That's like one of my top favorite ones ever. And you're like, that's the one I hate the most. That's the one I love the most.
So this is going to be my test. Okay, this is going to be my test from Michael. Michael, we've not met, but this is I'm putting you up. I'm putting you on.
Oh,
I'm putting you on.
boy.
This is a
He already wrote it. He already did the conversion. We can look it
okay,
up.
well, I'm saying when I take a look at it now, because at least Pathfinder 2 has the advantage of having, I don't know, you guys, I'm going to say some random nonsense and you guys can put 500 words in order to make a monster profile. So if you figure out a way to simplify and yet create 2 distinct, legally distinct, okay, like if you can create a rope golem,
right,
and a knotsman, okay, that are somehow different in ShadowDark, despite being simpler, and I like them.
So Derek,
we already did it. We already did
it. I'm going to tell you, and therefore everyone else, briefly, exactly what he did. So the knotsman, okay, has a constructed nature, regeneration, the ability to uncoil to look like rope, and an entangle ability. Okay. The rope golem, on the other hand, it does still have the constructed nature, right? It's a construct. It still has the uncoil, but its main way of fighting you is very different. It has a grapple ability. It has a toss away ability and a tangle up, where it can cause you to be enveloped into its body. So that's what the differences are.
But is it vulnerable? Is it vulnerable to grease?
I think I put in the notes. I cut that out. I'm like,
And you know what? And you're right to do it. No, and you're right to do it. And I'll tell you why. Because that is exactly the type of thing that defines something like ShadowDark or BX style play, which is a rope golem's coming together, and it's all things. And then somebody goes, "Hey, can I cast a grease spell on it and make it fall apart?" And the GM goes, "Yeah, totally." And then they cast a grease spell and you make it do damage or whatever. Okay, I could buy that. All right, rope golem. I can grab them. The knotsman is more of has kind of a mimic thing going on, right? Where it's a little bit more. It sounds like the knotsman's a little bit more ropey, and the rope golem's a little bit more golemy.
The rope golem's more tanky, and the knotsman is a little more like sneaky, tripping you and stuff.
Stealthy, maybe. Right. I'll buy from you. No, that's great. I mean, that's a tough challenge. It's a tough challenge in Pathfinder 2. It's a tougher challenge in ShadowDark.
I've got the top events here for GaryCon pulled up that I put together. We'll do top 5. Do you want to guess, or is that boring? Do you want to guess what number 5?
It could be fun. So
I already know what it is.
This is the top 5 most popular game systems for the events. That's
based
correct?
off of number of sessions.
Well,
number of sessions.
Is it number? Wait, we're doing number 1 or number 5?
And he said number 1 was 5e already.
Number 5.
Yeah, what's number 5?
Call Cthulhu.
Nah, I'd say D&D first, or older
we're doing number
edition.
5 first.
We're doing
Call of Cthulhu.
but D&D 5e was number 1. So
5e.
Editions.
I'm doing like an older. I don't know which one it would be.
He says D&D first edition is what Steven said. That's why he said D&D first.
I don't know if it's first, second, third. I don't know how they're categorizing it, but definitely the older versions of D&D. There's a lot of games.
So yeah, Mike, can you tell us? 5e obviously was first. Can you tell us that are every D&D that are on that list like completely separated out? Like, would they be like, well, Moldvay is different than Holmes, and therefore
it is. There's listings here for D&D 5th edition, AD&D 1st edition. There's listings for D&D original.
OD&D.
Yeah, there's a lot of D&D on there.
D&D 3rd edition.
Right.
There is D&D 1st edition, which I think
which is different of a listing than AD&D 1st edition. So we need to keep all that in mind.
Actually, I'm going to say Pathfinder, because there's a lot of Pathfinder events there.
I'm going to call it Cthulhu.
Pathfinder is in 10th.
Oh, okay.
Call of Cthulhu is the answer. 7th edition.
Oh, okay.
Well done.
Wow.
With 97.
Okay. There actually is a surprising number of Pathfinder games there, though.
Yep.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Number 4.
Number 4.
I'm going to go AD&D 1st edition.
Okay. I'm going to say DCC.
I say D&D 1st edition.
D&D First Edition is the correct answer.
Oh, D&D first edition. So Steven got it because Derek said AD&D first
AD&D
edition.
first
Well, that's what I meant. AD&D first
Wait, no,
edition.
because Mike said D&D first edition and AD&D first
It
edition.
is AD&D. I meant AD&D. No one plays D&D.
It has the A.
Fine.
AD&D First
AD&D.
Edition with 103 events.
All right.
Okay.
I
By the
meant
way, how
AD&D.
many are there of D&D first edition? Unless I guess it's higher. And
I think it's 0.
No, because Mike said they had both.
No, okay, fine. I'll say there's like 10.
There's 8 on them.
8.
There's 8.
That was pretty close.
Okay.
I
Yeah,
said
but
10.
that's probably just somebody who didn't use the right
No,
nomenclature.
I guarantee that's like half of those are
Or
probably.
maybe they were like,
we
no, mine's
meant,
not advanced.
we
It's
meant
not
AD&D
advanced.
first, right?
All right, so now we're up to number 3.
Okay.
This is where I'm going to go.
DCC.
I think I'm going to go ShadowDark here.
Yeah, I also am thinking ShadowDark. And wait, no, unless ShadowDark is number 2.
Mhm.
So yeah, maybe DCC
I'll give
for
you guys a
3.
hint. There is a 1 event difference between the second and the third.
DCC,
Holy moly, so it's basically
DCC,
just-
and then Shadowdark. There we go.
So I'm saying
Mhm.
DCC and ShadowDark, but I don't know which one has a 1 event difference.
I have an outlier. I'm going to try this. Okay. I'm going to say, I don't know what the company, I'm going to say ShadowDark and OD&D or original D&D.
What order do you think you have them in?
I'm going to go original D&D and then ShadowDark at number 2.
All right. The number 3 is Dungeon Crawl Classics. For that, with 117, and ShadowDark is at number 2 with 108.
So that was my guess. That
That
was
was
the
my
only thing
guess.
I got right. It was
And then
yours
number-
too, Steven.
And then number 1 is D&D 5th edition.
I got 4
Yeah.
out of 5 right, but to be fair, I just did my schedule yesterday, so I was looking at the. I
haven't looked at shit.
Yeah, right now, like to be fair, I was looking
Neither
at the
did I.
events, but I only looked at what was still open. By the way, and I signed up for. I actually signed up for a lot. I never signed up for things. I signed up for. I'm playing a GUI Cube game of AD&D of 5th edition. I signed up for a DCC event, but that's Castle White Rock, which was written by Adrian Palmer, who was one of my original players. So, and he wrote that for DCC version 1. So I'm kind of curious. That was a mega dungeon, so I'm kind of curious to see how they redid it. They're coming out with a Kickstarter for that, so I wanted to see that. What else did I sign up for?
Did you sign up for the 1 event of Apples to Apples Bible Edition?
I'm running it.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Wait, no, wait, are you?
No.
Number 1, Apples to Apples is not a bad party game.
Yeah.
Bible edition though is pretty funny.
I don't know anything about the Bible. What's the Bible? I think I would burst into flames if I touched one. So,
Didn't you? I'm
Yes.
sure you had a bar mitzvah.
oh,
Yeah,
I had a bar
you-
mitzvah. And
I'm sure you-
wait, I not only did I have a bar mitzvah, but I failed out of Hebrew school. And then my dad, who knew Hebrew fluently, forced me every day to learn the prayers, and I had to do them phonetically, basically, like a song, because I was so bad at Hebrew school. I hated it so much. But I still know them to this day. I can actually recite them by heart because I had to learn them. So,
I
There you
do have a bonus question for you guys. You know that ShadowDark is second with 118 events. How many events are there for D&D 5th edition?
oh, I thought you were going to say how many events of Shadowdark are sold out. I was going to say all of them because I couldn't find a single thing.
Okay, so hold on. It's second at 118,
I couldn't find
and
a
we
single
also
thing.
we know how many people there. 3,000 people are there.
It was like 3,500.
Oh,
3,500
I'd say
people.
201.
202.
Oh, wait.
215.
390.
Oh, my
Oh,
God.
There you go.
That's a lot.
That is
There's also,
surprising.
That is a
because
stunning number.
no, because it's Gary. It's Gary Con.
Con.
Yeah, you would
Yeah,
think that
I
it
guess
would.
so.
You
But
know, you
still.
think there'd be a lot
This
of
is-
people who would want to actually play games designed by Gary Gygax. You think that I would think that there would be a lot of right Little Brown Book based. You know, it's 1974 OD&D, right? Little Brown Books. You would think there'd be first edition AD&D.
But
You would
this
think
is
that there'd
the
be
live
chainmail.
version of D&D, though, Derek. So this is the one that's currently out. So
Okay,
I'm not.
are
Yeah,
you
but these
ready?
are also Gary Con.
Yeah, but it doesn't matter. This is going back to what I said before, like earlier in the episode. It's the D&D that is here now. So
Wait. Do you know how many games? I have a better question for you. Do you know how many games of Shadowdark are not sold out. How many were there?
Zero, Stephen.
No, actually, I looked it up now. There's just because people come and go. As of right now, while I'm looking at the schedule, how many games are not sold out? Out of, was it 107 you said or something? Like
118?
118. 118. How many?
I'm going to say it's two because it was three, but Stephen bought one of them while he was looking at it. That's my answer.
Derek, what do you think?
10.
Three games. That's
so
it.
Wait, so did you take any of those?
Not
spots?
yet, but I am looking.
So I was close, right?
You were close because
I said it was two because it was three, but Stephen took one of them.
Yeah.
My only misestimate in that whole scenario was your sort of gumption and initiative to go do something in the middle of the stream, which I've seen you do before.
Yeah, dude, I've already done like 20 things while we're talking. So
I know. That's why I guessed.
Well, this one's weird because it says D&D, but in the description. Okay, so this is weird. This one says it says system D&D, but it says in the description it's ShadowDark. Yeah. So it's a little tricky. Is it really ShadowDark or is it D&D? So if you're going to go by that, and if you go by the system, then there's only one game with one seat left in the entire Gary Con. If you're going to go by game system, there's only one.
You know what?
Sanctum of the Elephant God.
All this does is highlights.
Betty's running. Okay, I'm gonna go. Oh wait, Betty's running it. I don't need to buy a ticket. I can get into any game. What the hell am I talking about? Betty runs my games, by the way. That's why I'm like, I can get into Betty.
I'll kick out some paying player so that I can get in.
That's right. Have you, Derek? Have you met me? Have you met me? Derek walked through Gen Con with me and was dully. Were you horrified or impressed at Gen Con?
Both. It was like watching a lion feast on a zebra. You know, it was like it was terrifying and gory, but I couldn't look away. You know, at the splendor of a creature and an apex predator in its natural environment.
Oh my God!
Was it like being Fry in that one episode of Futurama where the '80s guy gets de-iced and then Fry is following him while watching him do all the business stuff?
Yes.
No. Again, it was like a lion. It was.
I'm gonna make one more plug for Gary Con. If you come to the Arcane, if you're going and you come to the Arcane Library booth, we have 1,000 sets of 6 Pogs that you can get if you stop by the booth.
Oh, okay.
Just stopping by to use as luck tokens in your game. And if you come with your phone and show us that you've pledged for the Kickstarter campaign, we have 500 Stingbat Slammers that you can get to use in your game however you feel like.
Now, we sometimes have rules lawyers in our streams, so I want to make that clear that when he says that he is going to give away 1,000 sets of 6 Pogs, that is not to you. You're not going to get all 1,000 of the sets of the 6 Pogs, and you're not going to get all 500 Stingbat Slammers.
I'm going to go to Gary Con, and I'm going to bring my special edition book that
this is why I could never
10
be
people in the world have, by the way.
This is why I could never work a booth at like a TTRPG event.
By the way, Derek, you can have the room, but you got to work my booth at Gen Con.
Because if somebody came up to me and they were even the slightest bit serious, like, well, you said it was going to be 1,000, I wouldn't be able to control myself from slapping that person. It would just be like instinct. I couldn't help it.
I mean, it's your booth. You can, you're allowed to.
I'd be like, this is old school.
You know what, Derek? If you did that, you would probably get reprimanded by the person whose booth it was for. But
I'm saying even if it was my booth.
Or even if it was yours. But a bunch of other people might be applauding the fact that you finally did something with this person who was harassing the other booth staff. And you might actually make sales of other people who were like, someone needed to do that.
Okay, no, but this is seriously like, I'm talking to you. Okay, I'm talking to you. All right.
People are saying they're into it, Derek, and they want to get slapped by you.
Don't be that guy.
Oh, that's right. People are going to be now. Next time we go to Gen Con, I want people to go up to Derek and say, give me 1,000 Pogs, please. And I just want to see him slapping people at Gen Con.
Don't be that person, okay, at a convention. And just don't be that person. It's just, there's so many people there that are just so entitled and they're so annoying and they're so just ingratiating. I can't stand it. I see it all the time. It just drives me crazy.
Yeah, but we're so good at ripping them to pieces, though.
No, they don't deserve to be, mocked. I would
I
rather
don't
they
mock
just did
them.
it. I just would rather they did. Remember when we were playing Oath?
I was thinking of Oath. That's the one I was thinking of. You guys were nice. I wasn't nice.
Thinking of Oath.
I wasn't nice at all.
Steven's probably thinking of Oath that time that he kept talking about the guy who just kept.
A guy who wasn't playing our game came over and started birding. That's watching, and then like critiquing and commenting on like things that we weren't doing right, or like or on someone's decision. Why'd you do that? And I mean, you about as politely as I could. I told that guy to just fuck off.
But I wasn't polite at all.
No, you were not polite at all. I was like, thank God you're from New York. Just rip him a new one.
I was like, dude. Get away! Like we're trying to enjoy.
You were like, we're trying to play the game.
No,
right?
seriously, I'm like, look, if you want to watch, keep your comments to yourself. Look, we're trying to get
you to watch. Fuck
yeah,
you.
Actually, I didn't even want him to watch, but I was like, just like leave. Like,
we're not on a stage. Just go away.
Yeah. But when he started to like comment on how we were playing and like doing blow by blow, play by play, I was like, get out of here, buddy. Like, because we're really in it. It was very heated too. That was a heated game of both.
Right.
Why are so many people in our chat asking about being slapped by Derek? Like, should we?
We started something. Everyone wants to get slapped by Derek.
Like,
Derek,
Steven,
yeah.
Should that be a Kickstarter add-on that if you come to Gen Con, Derek will slap
not
you?
only will it be the add-on will be you get a T-shirt that says "I was slapped by Derek Melinda."
And
anyways,
on the front and then on the back, it just shows like it shows like like a picture of like this with Derek, just like.
But to bring it back to something resembling something, I'm super busy right now. My family's dealing with some medical issues with my dad, and I've got a bunch of stuff going on, so it's not even a possibility right now. But one of the things, someone was asking about old school games and stuff like that, and I had this, and a lot of people were buzzing because for the last 3 years, my community has run a community game called The Northern Reaches, and it is a desolate frontier and a land where adventurers go, So obviously Western Reaches came out and everyone's like, oh my God, they stole from you. And I was like, no, they just took Western Marches and replaced Marches with Reaches. But to tap into that. But anyways, but I was thinking, I was like, oh, it would be kind of fun to run an old school type game like Gary used to run, AKA what Ben Robbins termed Western Marches. Where you have one GM and like 20 players, and the players kind of, schedule their games and stuff like that. And I was thinking about doing that for my patrons, and I was like, maybe we could make it a pay to win type thing where, if you pay more tickets and you have a higher Patreon tier, you get a better dice roll. You get like, 46 drop low instead of 3d6 straight. But anyways, but I was thinking, I was like, oh, I'll just use, BX. But then I was like, well, I'll probably have to play on a VTT. And then I was like, well, and a lot of people are going to, I love BX, but I was like, but there's so many awkward things. And I was like, maybe I would just use ShadowDark. It's just, Advantage is a really good mechanic. I know people hate it. I kind of love it.
I like it in the ShadowDark world. It's great. In the D&D world, it's D&D is too big and complex and comprehensive for just a simplified mechanic like that. By the way, there's a new pull-up. Would you pay money to get slapped by Derek? Yes or no?
Now it's about a third of all people. Derek, I want you to know that I voted no.
Thank you. If you vote yes, you're an idiot.
Yes is coming back. Oh, come on.
Derek,
come on, yes.
Derek, you have to understand that insulting them like that is what the people who voted yes want you to do.
I get it. I get it. Punish me, senpai. I know. I don't know.
You just get this when you walk down the street, don't you?
It's great.
Hey, can you just slap me real quick?
I just don't understand why people are so. And again, I didn't play 5e, right? We bounced off of it for a variety of reasons. Whatever. We had other games to play, but I just don't get why people are like so against Advantage, and they're like, I like numerical bonuses instead, and I'm like, okay. But they're like, but everyone agrees. They're like, but third edition was crazy with, 17 different numerical advantages that could all stack. So I just want numerical bonuses, but I only want like 1 or 2 bonuses and they don't stack. And I was like, isn't that Advantage? Like, oh, you got a +2 from this, but you also got a +2 from that. And you're like, yeah. I'm like, oh, but those are the same bonus type. They don't stack. And they're like, oh, understood. And I'm like, but then they go in Advantage and like, you have Advantage, but you have Advantage. And they're like, and they don't stack. Oh, this game is so lame. I don't understand. When you're playing D&D, the game of make-believe, I mean, look, it's not like you're playing, we covered RuneQuest the other day. It's not like you're playing RuneQuest where each part of your body has a different armor value and different hit points. You're playing D&D, right? Where it's like you just have hit points and they represent nothing and everything, and then you're dead or you're unconscious or whatever. I just don't understand why people act like this advantage or disadvantage system. In fact, my biggest mistake when I have run 5e is that I don't use any of the other rules. Like I was like, someone's like, oh, did you know that cover actually grants them like an arm bonus to their armor class in 5e? I said, no, I just assumed you had disadvantage to your attack roll because everything should just use this simple boilerplate mechanic. And which is what Dragonbane does. It's the reason I like Dragonbane, because it doesn't have any modifiers in the system.
So I don't know. I like advantage, but the one thing that I don't like about it, and it's easy for me to homebrew just a little bit differently on this, is I don't like the fact that once you have it and you also have disadvantage, you're done, because of the fact that it doesn't encourage you to try to do more things to give yourself an advantage.
Yeah,
like,
but if you have disadvantage, then once you get advantage, it cancels out the disadvantage.
Well, yeah, but I would like to, and what I do when I'm running 5e is that if you then got advantage again for a different reason, that you would have advantage.
Right. So you basically,
and the reason that I want to do that, and I get that it's simpler if they don't do that, is I ran into an issue in like one of the early play tests of 5e that I was doing that where like the elf had advantage to stealth or something whenever they were in the woods automatically. And it actually made it really unfun because of the fact that the elf character would just like walk right out in the open, never use cover or trees, and was ignoring everything. It's like, why?
That's a 5.
Shouldn't you use the trees? And it's like, no, because I already have advantage in the woods. There's literally no reason to do anything else ever. And so I would prefer it if it's like, well, why don't you do that? Because in my system, that way, if you get disadvantage for something, one of the two will be canceled, but the other one won't.
Yeah, I can't believe that like people didn't like automatically within 5 seconds just basically immediately house rule that to whatever Dragonbane does. They call them boons and banes, but basically they stack, and if you have 3 boons and 1 bane, then you're rolling with 2 boons, which is like double advantage. And it's, also it's a diminishing return, right? The second or third advantage offers you a much lesser, once you get advantage or so advantage, the second or third advantage offers you almost, not very limited rate of return.
By the way, so we have first poll was, would you pay money to get slapped by Derek? 75% said no, 24% said yes. The new poll is, would you pay money to slap Derek? And it's up to 43% said yes, so we're getting up there.
I voted yes on that one. So,
and people in chat are mentioning that like Nimble and DC20 and others let you stack advantage even more.
Does DC20 let you stack? I think it might let you stack advantage.
It does. And you stack disadvantage if you keep repeating the same action.
But you also have to remember, like when I ran ShadowDark, because I didn't know the rules, and also even if I did know the rules, I would do this anyways. Like Steven, like you threw that spear at somebody, or somebody in our group, I think maybe GM Scott, threw a spear at somebody.
He did.
He rolled maximum damage, and I was like, oh, this goblin only has 3 hit points. So clearly it kills it, hits the goblin behind it.
You kept going. I remember that.
You speared through 3 goblins, because I was like, you rolled max damage. Come on, that's that's a big moment to celebrate. Everyone had luck point, but then the dwarf drank a bunch of aid. So he got drunk luck
Everyone
points.
was dying. That was great, except me. I got to level 4. But
so he got drunk luck points, which he could use. And drunk luck points worked like luck points, except if you still failed after the luck point, it was like a critical fail.
It was
fumble
really
because
bad.
It was really bad.
So by the way, we played Michael. And we told Kelsey loved it. We did ShadowDark Extreme.
ShadowDark Extreme.
So the torches only last 10 minutes instead of an hour.
It's not 10 minutes. It's that I had an egg timer.
Right, an egg timer. And the second the egg timer stopped, it was like attacked. Like it wasn't like, oh, the egg timer stopped and it was like, okay, we light a torch. No, there was no downtime. There was no, you've got a second. It was that's it. You're dead.
It was a 10 minute hourglass, and then if it ran out and I noticed first, the group got attacked by a wandering monster.
Yes.
But if the group remembered, or if the group noticed first, or they remembered before the fan ran out and lit a new torch, then I would flip it over. And so sometimes, in the heat of a moment, the party wouldn't pay attention to the hourglass timer, and and I would look over my screen and go, it's in the dark. The monster's tattoo.
It was only happened once, and it was brutal. It was actually
if the players got distracted during
very
the fight.
bad.
Yes,
Could that have added a wandering monster? To
absolutely, absolutely.
And, in fact, and they're at disadvantage on everything because it's dark.
Yeah, and if I noticed that the hourglass timer was about to run out, Mark, I would purposely start throwing big words at them and giving them lots of descriptions in the hopes of distracting them so that I could, while they were like trying to figure out, is this a trap or not? I would then be like, oh, psych, look, and get them. And yes, so I was actively trying to destroy my players.
There's an art to slow playing the last few minutes of a torch timer. Definitely like, oh, I gotta grab a beer from the fridge or whatever. Just to time it just right to take your players by surprise, for sure.
Colin asks, is there a massive difference between old school D&D, BX, Beck Me, first edition? Well, for starters, first edition AD&D is in its own lineage, if you want to call it that. OSE, DCC, ShadowDark. Are these really completely different? So I will say this. The intent, if you go and read Matt Finch's old school primer, right? Like the idea there is sort of empathized. Now, that being said, I do think that modern OSR sort of looks at old school gaming with rose tinted glasses and a sort of nostalgic, homage. And I think it's a little bit, overstated. I will say that to me, the old school games are basically just very simplistic, basic D&D. Dungeon Crawl Classics introduced something new in like the randomness for spells, the rolling, the sort of punishing tables. I would say that ShadowDark represents kind of a blend of DCC, 5e, and old school D&D in that it is some of those same mechanics. It introduces like the randomness of the magic table and the magic mishaps concept, which is not something you find in actually original D&D. Original D&D magic was very safe. You cast spell, it worked, and that was it, right? It was Vancian. It was DCC that really introduced that idea of like the rolling for spells and, oh, you rolled bad and Warhammer Fantasy. I mean, obviously, like, the whole idea of spell mishaps kind of exists before that. But I think Kelsey was inspired from DCC. But it has the cleanliness of the language, the consistency of, 12 to 13 is a +1, 14 to 15 is a +2, 16 to 17 is a +3, 18 is a +4 that we got with third edition and carried over into fifth edition. It has advantage, disadvantage, numbers go up instead of down, not the weird, awkward, bump things. So from that perspective, it really is, I think ShadowDark really is a blend, in my opinion, of the best versions of those three things. Are there things about OSE that I like or BXD&D that I like? Yeah, I like archaic turn undead tables because I think they're fun and I like having these weird random secondary systems. I like crazy weird, why does this thief use a percentage system to pick pockets and move silently? Nobody knows, but I like that stuff because it's weird and archaic, but I'm liking it through a nostalgic lens. I don't think it actually makes the game better.
I will I'll let people know, if they haven't played ShadowDark, if they haven't read ShadowDark, you can either go to the Kickstarter campaign or go to the Arcane Library's website, or the one product for ShadowDark that is on DriveThruRPG is the free Quick Start set, which is 2 zines. They're each 68 pages, one for the players, one for the DM, and a bunch of pre-generated characters, or you can generate your own with what you have. It'll take you from levels 1 through 3, and there's a great dungeon in there too. So there's a very, very low barrier to entry if you want to read the system or if you want to try it with your friends as a one-shot. It's the easiest. And Kelsey also has a ton more free stuff out there for the system. So it's a really easy thing to explore and get a feel for to see if you like it or not. That's my pitch.
Your pitch.
That's my pitch.
So what else have you been doing besides? So you're working stuff for us, for our Kickstarter and our ShadowDark book. What did you do for the Kelsey book? Because they called you the class extraordinaire or class architect or class guru. I forgot what you called you, or something like that. Did
you call me something like that?
Yeah.
On the Kickstarter page?
Yeah, on the Kickstarter.
I did write. I came up with the idea for the class of the Roustabout, and that is included in the Player's Guide to the Western Reaches, which is just sort of an average Joe type of character that released last April Fool's Day, and it has become a minor phenomenon. I'm patting myself on the back pretty hard
Oh,
here.
Roustabout class
It says
design.
Roustabout class design.
Yeah, I thought
there.
I thought that was a title. I didn't realize that was
No.
literally was one class you designed.
And then it says Baron. It says contributions to Cryptid Scroll 4.
Right.
Yeah, I think he did a one of the mini dungeons there. But usually when I'm not designing the one class I did a year ago for Kelsey, I'm doing her customer service. I'm doing I have some background in logistics, and so I'm helping with that and doing some printing, and then overall sort of I don't know, strategy, I would say too, which has been a lot of fun. But outside of my stuff with Kelsey, I'm also working with JP Couvert, who I know you know. He did his recent campaign for Dragontown and the Darkness Below.
I kickstarted that.
Yeah, and I'm doing the ShadowDark adaptation of it too. So hopefully that'll be done this this summer. And then I'm also have my own projects too. I just kickstarted, not quite to the success that Kelsey did.
Any of this book?
There it is. It's awesome. JP is so good. His art's sick, and he'll be at GaryCon. He's a great.
Yeah. JP stops by our stream sometimes because I always say it. I was like, it's one of the best channels, and it's one of the few channels in YouTube, like the TTRPG space. I've literally seen every one of his videos because they're all very watchable and quick, and they're really actionable, and I think they're great.
Yeah, I've actually watched all of Derek's. Okay, and I haven't watched all of Derek's videos. What I've really done is I use them when I'm going to bed. So I use them as sleep aids, so that way I fall asleep. So I've subconsciously listened to all your videos, Derek.
There we go. I think we published maybe 575 hours of content last year. So
that's it.
That's it.
That's probably about how many hours Steven slept last year.
That's probably. I've actually been getting more sleep.
Okay, that's good. That's good. Keep healthy, Steven.
Yeah.
I just want to say I want to shout out to Dave in the chat, who apparently his FLGS is doing a ShadowDark launch, which is pretty sick. So
that's awesome.
It's super awesome. Thanks, Dave. Yeah. I'm also managing the wholesale program for the Arcane Library too.
Do you think that ShadowDark runs the risk though of becoming a victim of its own success? And what I mean by that is, like, there's going to be people are going to go, okay, there's money here, right? And then you're going to see new classes and new things and new systems and new this and new this and new that, and it's going to get monetized and monetized and monetized, and and then suddenly the game that was this like super light, simple, like, again, don't let this fool you, okay? That. Like that's the rules for ShadowDark, like that much, all the rest of this is just like random tables and like oracle tables and random stuff. So like, does it run the risk, like when right now there's what, fighter, thief, cleric, magic user, I think are the 4 classes, right, in the book?
Yeah, those are the 4 main classes, and then each curse scroll has between 1 and 3 new classes that are specific to the setting, kind of the mini setting within the curse scroll. And then there are some other classes that are more Western Reaches specific that are going to be found in the Western Reaches player guide.
Right.
But I don't think so.
Okay.
I think that I think that's appealing to a lot of players coming in from 5e because they're used to having options. But at the end of the day, a DM, it's really easy for a DM to just say, hey, we're playing Curse Scroll 1, so we're going to go with the 4 main classes, and then we're going to go with the 3 classes in Curse Scroll 1, and then of course the Roustabout, because it's everyone's favorite class, because it's the best class ever, obviously. We give people the permission to make those kind of decisions. It's even written in the book, in the rules. It's the one rule is, the DM makes the rules, essentially. And something that we offer, and we have an online character builder called Shadow Darklings, something that you can do on our kind of like simple character building website is you can disable certain classes, certain species or whatever, and certain sources to send to your players in a way that you just can't do even with 5e on D&D Beyond. It's something Mike Shea talks about all the time is, hey, I wish there was a way that I could disable certain spells or disable certain classes. But if a book's available to a group, then everything in the book's available when they're making their characters there. So I'm biased, and I could be wrong, but I just don't I don't know. People like classes, and if you don't want to play with them in your game, like just stick to the core 4. They work great as it is.
I don't know. We're going to try to release 12 new classes, Derek. So
I mean, people.
I know that's what I'm talking about. I'm talking about bloat.
When you look at what's out there from other third-party publishers, it's a lot of classes. It's a lot of monsters and a lot of that kind of stuff, and people eat it up. And I don't mean that in a a flippant or derogatory way, but people want ways to customize their game, and ShadowDark, in its simplicity, makes it very easy for anyone to write classes in these things like that. So, whether you're writing a new class for your own table, or you're using third-party material, or you're buying the awesome classes that are coming up in the new Battlezoo Bestiary for ShadowDark, or whatever, it's I think the options are good.
Well, also, I think ShadowDark is different. Like, you can play a game of D&D and be one class for 4 years. You know what I mean? In ShadowDark, like, you can,
Yeah, that's true.
You can just go through the classes quickly. Like, I think ShadowDark more than like Talisman, because like you guys know I played Talisman every day growing up, and we would always play. I had every expansion, and each expansion came like 20 new classes. We would play a new class every time we played. I mean, there must have been 200 classes in Talisman by the end, and I probably played every single one. And that was part of the fun. And I think that's something else that ShadowDark taps into, is because you don't need to be perfect and pick the class that you are going to live with for the next 2 years. Like, right. You can try a class, and if you die, so be it, try a different one, Like, so, it's fast.
So this is why I'm a little bit of a I guess I'm a little bit of a grognard here, but it's that for me, and again, I was very young in the 80s, so I wasn't like really, I wasn't like 15. I wasn't Stranger Thingsing it up like Steven was.
Yeah.
I didn't start playing
D&D. Out of the 7-Eleven for so long.
Right. I didn't start playing D&D until the very late 80s, like 1990, like basically after second edition came out, and I was a kid. But I remember, and this carried over even into my third edition days and my Pathfinder 1 days and all this other stuff, which is, if you look at a class in this book, if you look at a fighter, they get nothing. Like there's literally nothing to it. But if you looked at my friends, or even some of my other friends or people I knew's character sheets, you would see all this crazy stuff on their character sheets. And it's because the way that your character grew and advanced and developed in those days, in those games, was 1, through the acquisition of cool magical items, and 2, diegetically. And by that I mean, a classic example was like, this happened. This was actually happened in our third edition campaign, not a basic campaign. We had a fight against some rats or something like that, and one character who like rolled like 4 20s in a row against these rats, and we said, "Oh, clearly you are a rat slayer," and so he got a new ability that he put on his character sheet. Right, you're the slayer of rats, and any hit against a rat or rat type creature was automatically a critical hit, and we just wrote that on his character sheet. And I believe that is the way that people, and Gary loved random fountains, and you get some special ability, and you didn't get it because you leveled up. You got it because you were in the dungeon and you went to that strange altar and you prayed at that weird, strange shrine. And third edition tried to take that and segment that and mechanize that into feats, and you get this ability at level 3 and you get this ability at level 5, and fourth edition did that even more, and fifth edition kind of took a step back from that, but Pathfinder 2 does that in spades, right? Everything is a feat. And what they've done is they sort of taken the natural evolution, the diegetic evolution of the game, and they've mechanized it. They put, labels on it and stamps on it. And so that's the only reason why, when I look at ShadowDark, I see a very basic and simplistic system. The classes are very basic and simplistic. But I worry that if you try to add too much, that, it'll encourage people to be like, oh, well, I can't do that. Why? Well, because the Rastabout has that on their class list. So how could I possibly have that? You can't give that to me, because that's going to make the Rastabout they're going to feel bad. Why would I play a Rastabout? It's on their 2d6 level up ability. I can't gain that ability. And I get it. The GM makes any rules that they want, but that's never as simple as and clear cut as people want it to be.
Yeah, but that's going to happen no matter what, because third party is third party, and that's why at Roll for Combat, we go through, like I hired Michael because I want people who understand the systems. That's why I hired Mark. Our 5e people are freaking monsters. We hire like the best people who understand the systems because I hate breaking systems. I hate min-maxing. I hate power creep to death. I think it will kill. Not only will it kill a game, but I think no one will. It will kill your product too, because then people won't trust what you publish. So
unless it's Magic the Gathering.
Well, true, but that's a whole different story because they break their own product. But the point is that as a third-party publisher, you need to be very careful, and I think there's a lot of clout in hiring people from the D&D world or the Pathfinder world or the ShadowDark world. In fact, I didn't even tell you this, Mark. I got an email from the head of Dungeons and Dragons because he bought Eldamon for his kids but for him actually. And then
when you say the head of Dungeons and Dragons, you mean the fellow
Brian.
we talked to? Who was
Brian. He's the head
who was in charge of doing some of the.
He's in charge of the digital. He's actually pretty high up. He's in charge of more than that.
He's like one of the D&D Beyond people,
no, but he's
right?
even higher than that because he also does minis. He's like, I think, below Jeremy Crawford. He's pretty high up, and he bought Eldamon. He's
No, but wait, hold on, Stephen.
Okay,
he
fine. You want me to get
shouldn't even be in the same reporting structure as Jeremy Crawford, based on what my understanding, because Jeremy Crawford, writes the game. And
let's pull up the company, the
I'm
org chart.
going to get his freaking title. Hold on.
it seemed like he was in charge of
senior director of D&D franchise
franchising,
planning and strategies is what he is.
There you go. So he wouldn't even be on the same team as Jeremy Crawford, but that is a very important position.
Anyhow,
you took the air out of Stephen.
I know because
Mark is the dream killer.
He is the dream killer. No, but I sent him the minis because he has kids. And I sent him the plushies, and he wrote me and he thanked me because he said they're fantastic. And he actually complimented our minis, said these were some of the best minis he's ever seen. He couldn't believe how nice they were because he says he does a lot of work with them. And I wrote him because you know who did our minis? The same guy who does the Whiz Kids minis. Because that's who I found. I try to always find the best people for the job. That's why I have Derek on the show, because he's the best whipping boy I could find. And we needed someone who could be a court jester. And there's no one better than Derek.
All right. This is a super RPG deep cut. I will be your villain, Hante.
What is that? That's from...
If anybody can even get that in chat, shout some respect to you. But I will be your villain, Hante.
Going back to the idea of blows, right?
Yes.
First, I want to say the thief was a homebrew class. It didn't exist originally. It was added.
And I don't think it should exist.
By the way, it is the most divisive class in the early history of D&D because of the way it kind of took things and made them from just we'll just make up what it is to no, maybe if this class can do it, that means you can't.
Yeah. Well, what else I want to say to you, Derek, especially is if you go to Kelsey's YouTube, she has a great video. It was a live stream that she did after the last Kickstarter where she designed the Bard class and the Ranger class on stream. And she goes into she goes into depth about what her design philosophy is. And about keeping specialization intact, so you don't have in a way that thieves get advantage when they're trying to open something up in a way that other classes don't. But you can still let those other classes try those things, but know that a specialization for a specific class is going to get rewarded for that mechanically in a way that another class would not. So I think that helps. I think there's a sweet spot in there that allows you to have more classes and more options without feeling I can't do that thing. I can't try to jimmy open this chest because that's what the thief is for.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
Which again is I think that was the problem with the thief is the thief basically introduced these skills. And I remember being a kid in the 90s and being oh, you can't move silently. You're not a thief. You don't have move silently percentages, And it kind of, even as a kid, it warped my brain around this idea of what a character class could or couldn't do. Because, thief has move silently. The fighter doesn't have move silently, but the fighter can also attack three 3 times every 2 turns. Well, the thief can't do that. That's a fighter thing, right? So I'm very cautious about this, and
I don't know. I go from the flip side, because I remember when I was a kid playing D&D, we only had the core classes, and that was it. And the day Dragon Magazine came out with the Barbarian, with like 1981, and I was so excited because the Barbarian D12, where we're talking about like a wizard with a D4 hit points, and I'm like, holy crap, this guy is a freaking monster.
They also needed like 6,000 experience points to get to level 2 or something.
But they were so powerful, and they just felt like it was such a breath of fresh air. I couldn't wait to play the Barbarian, and I played it a lot. It was so much fun, and that was like, I think maybe one of the first official like new classes for D&D for a while. I mean, like there was the Bard and stuff, but Bard was complex and it was very hard to get into.
Are all the classes in ShadowDark presumed to be quote unquote balanced, right? Because again, in basic D&D and in original D&D, right, there was this idea that some classes were better than others, which is why they had different XP progressions. Does everyone use the same XP progression in ShadowDark?
Yeah, because XP is just based on 10 times your level.
Oh, you're right. You're right.
1, 10 XP to get to level 2.
Got it.
I think balance is a false god that we sometimes all pray to in our games, and I think that ShadowDark embraces a little bit more chaos. I think that I haven't seen all of the new classes, and I think some of them haven't been gotten finished writing yet, but I think that they're enough in line with one another that having one or another is not going to throw anything off wildly.
Yeah, I think when people talk about balance, though, they have to be aware of 2 things. Number one, I don't care about either forms of these balance, but also I play with adults who aren't children. Is internal and external balance. External balance is this idea, this is mostly for the chat, but like it's this idea of like the GM is going to throw a challenge at you. They know it's appropriate for your characters and that mathematically you're probably likely going to win, blah, blah, blah. Internal balance is the idea that you don't have a character who has like straight 18s and is better at everything that you do, and they're better at everything that character does, and they're better than everybody that character does. I think a lot of people that play these games worry about both. And I think that a lot of people, though, do worry about internal balance, which is the idea of like, you don't want that quarterback all-star character who sort of, takes the lead. When I was growing up as a kid, we always rolled a random ability scores, and somebody would, sometimes you get somebody who rolled insane and they'd have some insane character, but like the group was like, this is our leader, this is our Aragorn, like this is we kind of rally around them, and we never had any problems with it, but I understand where a lot of people can have some problems with that now. If somebody had some super character.
Well, I mean, you could roll miraculously when you're rolling 3d6 down the line, which is, ShadowDark rules as written. But even when you're getting all of your abilities, like you have a few built in, you have like one that comes from your ancestry, and you're going to have like a few just based on that specific, character class. The talents you get are randomized on a table. So you can have some, incredible roles there potentially, and you have that leader. But I see it in that same way. Like,
I think that's awesome.
This is our pick. Like, let's get him out there. Let's use that. Or like, we need this magic user is the one that's gonna really like propel us forward in this. We have to plan our strategies around protecting them in combat or whatever. I think it adds more flavor to the game.
So I agree.
I think that having it be able to appear randomly is something that some people are very against. And some people, as we've seen here, Mike and Derek are for that. But I think there's a difference between that, right? There's a difference between Derek's fighter and Steven's fighter rolled, and Steven's fighter rolled horribly on everything, and Derek's fighter rolled great and got all the best abilities and perfect stats. There's a difference between that and Mark. We're all playing at Mike's table. Mark played the double fighter class. And what did the double fighter class get? Well, all of its talents that it can roll are exactly the same as the fighters, but they're twice as good. And he rolled kind of average, but is also just better than both Steven and Derek's people because he chose to play the double fighter. And some people are more upset actually about the random way that Steven and Derek's character would be different there. And some people are more upset about Mark's character because that one was not even a random. That wasn't the dice gods. That was just the class was brokenly better. And then some people don't care about either,
right?
And some people care about both.
Yeah, and also
I would say that it's like it's a two-dimensional issue.
talk is also cheap, and I don't think there is, but like talk is also cheap until you roll 3d6 straight down the line and you get like 10, 9, 9, 10, 10, 10, and you're just like,
Then you're roustabout.
you're just like,
dude, I got I'll
That's
tell
not
you.
the worst you can get.
Oh no, wait,
I know,
got one.
fine. 7, 7, 6, 6,
No, wait,
4,
I got
3.
my character that I played for quite a while. Strength 4. Intelligence 17. And then everything else was like 12, 12, 12, 12. I'm like, and then I roll hit points 1. I'm like, okay, I guess I'm a wizard. And that wizard lasted for quite a while because I had so many hirelings, and I would walk around the dungeon with a 20-person hireling wall, and they would have to get through all the hirelings before they would even get to me. He lived to like level 4, and I think I had 4 hit points at level 4, by the way.
Did you play in our second session of ShadowDark at Origins?
No, I was hanging out with Kelsey. That was the one where Kelsey that came by to say hi. Right.
Kelsey stopped by to say hi, but that was the one where we were kind of halfway through it, and my buddy Smith, Smith, his wizard character died, right, and he just didn't feel like making a new character. It was already so late through the session, and so he was like, so like as I die, I'm gonna like Mr. Spock grab the rogue, and I'm gonna be like, remember, and I remember like what? And he's like, I pour my arcane consciousness into the rogue who had really good stats, and he's like, and then they just basically became a Gestalt character for the rest of the session, and he was just like a wizard living inside of this other character, but just because, and I was like, yeah, of course, fine, whatever, it's a one shot, but like even if it wasn't a one shot, I would have been like, go for it, because like he just didn't want to roll a new character, and we're already halfway through the session, and so now the wizard or the rogue had this wizard living inside of him, and we're like, well, obviously the wizard's making the saving throws when it's, a spell, and, you're using the wizard's intelligence, and then you're using the rogue's dexterity and strength. And it just became this super amalgamated character, and it was just like completely off the chain. And it was way better than everybody else's character, but it was so absurd and so crazy that people loved it. And obviously so random.
It also used up 2 of the players on that amalgamated better.
Correct. They didn't get 2 PCs.
It's like a fusion.
Yeah,
it was like a fusion. Yeah.
They were playing a Battlezoo Fusion the new Kickstarter.
They were playing Battlefield Fusion before you knew what it was. Actually, Fusion was out by then. But anyhow, you know what? It's funny, though, because Michael, take notes. So when we design classes, my big thing is that classes have to have one cool, unique item, but it's self-contained within the class. That's the problem, I think, with Thief, is that Thief does have cool things, but the cool things affect the overall game, like trap finding and thievery, and that can mess up the other characters, and I think that's why so many people don't like Thieves, is because their, quote, cool thing is external to the game.
Whereas if you have a monster mage that learns the magic of monsters,
right,
nobody else was going to be learning the magic of monsters anyway. Like there was no,
you're not stealing anyone else's thunder.
That people were going to do that,
right?
So that's that. When the class does it, no one thinks, well, now, oh, great, I was constantly learning the magic of monsters, and now I can't.
Right. I could buy that. I could buy that. I can actually buy that. I think for me, it's like the aesthetic of old school gaming is sort of like, well, I don't know, how do you beat the trap? And you're like, yeah, we ended up ripping up someone's bedroll into strips, and we stuffed them into the holes so that and like I feel like the thief class sort of like encourages you to bypass that.
Dude, in my game, we have a thief. Level 19 Pathfinder, and he's just, I roll. Do I make it? Yes. Okay, it's gone. Like, there's no, how do you do it? What's the magic you use? There's no, there's no role play.
But the problem with that is,
I don't like it.
No. It's the problem with that is people have double standards, because people will be like, well, how do you disable the trap? And they're like, well, I don't agree with that assessment. And but no one does that for your attack roll. No one does that for the attack roll.
Wait. I'll do one better.
Like, you're like, I swing my sword at the orc, and you're like, oh, but how do you swing? And you're like, well, that attack would never work. I'm going to give you disadvantage. It's like, I don't know shit about disabling traps. I don't know shit about battling orcs with battle axes either. That's why I have fucking dice.
Right. Anyway. Well, okay. okay, I've had this discussion many times, and we've had this argument. Okay, I get it for fighting, you don't need to describe it. I get it for trap finding, you don't need to describe it. But diplomacy?
No, that's a triple standard.
That's the worst one of all, because people like, I'm like, well, what do you say? I don't say anything. I roll a 20. I just do it. I'm like, we're in a role-playing game. You need to say something.
That is such a bullshit argument. No, your argument is a bullshit argument.
I know.
If people don't have to describe an attack roll, they shouldn't have to describe a diplomacy check.
I know.
Hell, you're asking a socially awkward person to describe.
No, these are my friends. They're not socially awkward.
Right, so I'm gonna weigh in on this one.
Okay.
I think that Derek, your analogy is unfair to Stephen, because when they said that they were making the attack roll, they said they were doing it with their sword. It wasn't their spear, it wasn't their bow, it was their sword. If they're making the diplomacy check, do they need to role play it out in a Shakespearean English with an accent? And
I hope not.
For 20 minutes. Of course they don't need to do that, Derek.
So I take out my sword.
Do they even need to say what they're doing like entirely in character for a long time? Of course not. But they at least need to do the equivalent of, say, they're attacking with their sword, where they explain the bare basics, maybe like completely out of character, right? Like, you don't just say like, I diplomacy the king. Now we have his army. Like, you'd be like, okay, so just give me any amount of information of how you're convincing the king to send the army. It's like, well, I'm going to tell him that because the Lich Lord is sending all the undead, we need the army. And that's all I need. But you at least want to know that you're asking for the army because you're defending against the Lich Lord, so that I can determine what the difficulty is for respect to the king. They don't need to do it in character. They don't need to be.
You're absolutely right.
They need to have told me that, though. They can't just be like, now we have the army. I rolled 35 on diplomacy.
You're absolutely right, and I agree. I think that you should at least describe the approach, right? And I think that's true for everything. That being said, there isn't a person in this chat room, and that includes you guys, who during a game of Pathfinder 2, maybe once you hit that second or third round of combat, isn't totally fine with, and in fact is almost encouraging somebody just be like, yeah, what map attack? And just like, I'm just rolling that second attack, right? Because at a certain point you just go, we don't even care. We're just going to roll the dice. And we just go map attack. And I can tell you that happens all the time. You know, like all right. Steven, it's your turn. What are you doing? Yeah. Attack. Map attack. Fuck. The race shield. Right. And we do that because everyone's okay with that. And I'm just saying that it is a bit of a double standard. And while I do not want someone to be like, so what do you say? Diplomacy. I don't want that. I do want them to at least state an approach. And I will say that, there's an element to the game there that, you said that would determine the DC. And it's interesting because it's like, well, in combat, if someone describes something better, does that make the DC lower or higher or better?
Sometimes.
Or worse?
Yeah.
And for all of these reasons and more, this is why I also, I like games like Dungeon World and Powered by the Apocalypse and stuff like that. But the point is that it's a double standard across the industry, and I just find that it's funny how people get really upset about this. But anyways, thief class sucks.
Wow.
But I'm excited about this rest about it. If rolling straight 10s, it's a good thing.
The idea is if you don't roll a 14 in any stat, then you're rest about.
Oh, okay,
that's actually a great idea. In fact, maybe that's a great concept. That's like, we used to play bowling, and we would do this, it's called low ball, where you'd have to try to get the lowest score possible, and if you got a gutter ball, you automatically got a 10. So you'd have to try to hit like the corners and just get like one pin at a time, or better yet, hit one pin and then miss, so you'd only get one.
That's actually really cool.
Yeah. Well, when you're on the bowling team in high school, you do cool things like that, let me tell you. So
yeah, you're like then we went and played Dungeons and Dragons at the 7-Eleven.
It was better. We used to go on the bowling team, go bowling. Then we would go down to the arcade and play like Galaxian and Phoenix. And then we would go back and play D&D and Talisman all night long. And let me tell you, we were geeking it up as kids.
That being said, you know what my favorite part about ShadowDark is? The class design. About the class design.
Sure.
I love that it's a random stat game and only goes to 10. But I love that you roll randomly for what you get when you level up, and not a good chunk of them, but a solid amount of them are stat adjustments.
Yeah.
I love that because that is where the hope springs eternal, you know, because you're like, yeah, I started with humble means. I was a fighter of 13 strength, you know, but look at me now. Now I've got a 17 strength, you know, or now I have a 9, you know, and I think that's so cool because I've never liked the way that ability score improvements occur in the modern games, but I also didn't like how in the old days that you really couldn't adjust them at all outside of like a wish spell or some sort of really powerful magic. So I think making ability score enhancement one of the core level up features of a class is really, really cool.
Yeah.
And I think that's a really interesting design, and I like it.
But
Great.
yeah, I do like the rest. I do like that the lower you roll, the better your character. That would be awesome if we can figure out a way to do that.
But even just like the idea now, of course, and like yeah. So, anyways, it's a cool feature, and it's also I think most of the time it's almost always +2, right?
Yes.
Because that way it's at least a +1 to the effective actual D20 roll, which is great.
And a lot of times it's either like you can get either add 2 to your strength or add +1 to melee attacks or something like that, because there are certain character, like I hesitate to call them builds because it is so random, but there are certain times that you would prefer to actually add +1 to melee weapons attacks rather than strength or whatever. You know,
I remember when I was playing a cleric in a one shot, and I later discovered that this was rolled incorrectly, I guess, in my favor. That I rolled so many times I guess it was because 2d6 and it was near the 7, so it was easy to roll it. I rolled so many times to increase my wisdom that it should have been illegal, and there wasn't another alternative option. But the GM told me it was okay. That I was like, "Are you sure that my wisdom can go that high?" And he's like, "Yes." And so I want maybe one of the only ShadowDark clerics of all time with 20 wisdom or whatever I had, whatever illegal amount of wisdom.
Well, you could have 100 wisdom, but it's only +4. It's capped, so you can have any number you want.
Yes, because it's 18 plus. Is +4.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, 18 plus. You can have a 10 million wisdom. It's still +4.
I respect the fighter.
I was given a 20 wisdom with a +5.
Oh,
so
that's
the mistake.
That's a mistake.
I respect the player who, after rolls well for strength, rolls a 7 or 8 on their fighter, takes it up to 18. Gets another 7 or 8, 9. You're like, oh, what are you taking up, Dex or Con? You're like, nah, I'm going to take up strength. That doesn't add anything. I know. I just don't care. I want to have like a 25, 26 strength by the end of the campaign.
Well, you know that part of ShadowDark is like a simplified inventory management. You only have so many gear slots, and that is what if you want to go up to 20 strength, you'll have 20 gear slots as a
so there's an advantage.
Yeah,
there's a use for it for strength.
There actually is, yeah, because my character was a fighter. I actually have it around here somewhere. Is a fighter and had 18 and somehow got up to 20, and I was the mule for the entire group because I had so many slots, and it was like I had every weapon, and plus since they're a fighter, it's like I had every weapon. It was great. Like that actually is the one thing of ShadowDark that it's not a bad part, but it's like you can be extremely limited by inventory. It can be very difficult. At the low levels. At the higher levels, you can take care of it different ways. But at the low levels, like you can really have like almost nothing, and it becomes a real problem.
I mean, it's part of the the gameplay is you have to make those decisions of, do I want to take this treasure back with me, or do I want to leave rations here? Which you also
no. You eat the treasure and then later eat the rations.
and like I said, I'm running. You can see this on my channel, by the way. One of my two groups, consented to have us record their sessions and put it on our YouTube channel. But we're running through Torchbearer, which is sort of a burning wheel version of a dungeon crawl, and you have these limited inventory slots. And the group found this jade statue that took up 6 inventory slots, and they're like, what do we drop? What do we keep? They're like, well, we don't need that many rations left, and they're throwing them down holes and stuff like that. And it's interesting, for some people, they're like, that sounds like the worst thing I could ever possibly imagine. Trying to figure out how many gear slots I have and what torches and what inventory, what rations to carry. And I respect that. I mean, that's fine. That's a different style of game. And that, again, this all gets back to why I am shook that ShadowDark is doing another $1 million Kickstarter, because it's like, I wouldn't have thought there was that much support out there for people who want to play these games.
There's just enough of that inventory management that it doesn't bog you down, though.
No.
Gives you a
It's
taste
pretty good. So, by the way, Derek has to leave soon. We have 206 people, only 93 likes. We need more likes, people. Do you not have thumbs? And make sure you subscribe, because otherwise you're going to miss. In 2 weeks, Kelsey's going to be on. And maybe it's not at 3 o'clock. Maybe it's at 4 o'clock. Maybe it's 2 o'clock. Maybe it's at 5 in the morning like it was when she launched this thing. Who knows? So you want to subscribe to know when Kelsey's going to be on the channel.
Are you going to bully her into giving away a box set as part of this, Steven?
Her box set or my box set?
Probably her box. I mean, she's the one promoting her current Kickstarter.
I don't bully her around. I'm as nice as can be. No. Kelsey gets full respect. I never bully Kelsey around. No. But if she wants to, I will. If anything, I would say maybe give out some stickers or something. But
I gave away 3 copies of Fabulous Ultimate.
I saw that yesterday. But I was with you, I think, when you got those at Gen Con. Yeah, I was.
You were with me.
I remember it because we were at the room and you're like, I got to give these away. I saw that the new Fabulous Ultima came out and I thought of you right away. I was like, drive through RPG, so I'm like, oh, Derek's going to be all over this. And then your stream yesterday, you were all over it.
The author, the creator, is a member of our Patreon.
I know. I've met him. I think she's actually.
Yeah, no, you met him. You talked to him at Gen Con.
Yeah. Well, he's actually a Gamma too. I didn't see him though, but
yeah, Emmanuel Galetto.
Yeah, I gotta get him on my show. He's super nice. I love that game. That game has one of the best designs, like physical designs.
It's gorgeous,
ever.
yeah.
Like it is phenomenal. It's incredible.
They're releasing Natural Fantasy this year, but now
looks so
they're
good.
Working on right now is their first bestiary. So.
Yeah, I know. You and I maybe I'll do a bestiary. We were talking about doing a bestiary for them because we have a lot of monsters now, and once you get 500 monsters, it starts coming. Our monsters are weird. So
also the thing is, yes, this is the thing. You know me.
Yes. No. Who are you?
But when you're talking about a JRPG inspired game, if the monster I'm fighting is like a big floating hat with like flapping wings, right? I love it. I'm like, yes. It's hat bird.
So you hate our monsters. You hate our monsters in D&D and Pathfinder, but you love our monsters in Fabula Ultima.
Yes.
Oh!
I would be so about a mechanical maitre d monster or whatever in Fabula Ultima.
So everything, it's like I give it an F in Pathfinder, but an A+ in Fabula Ultima.
That actually is completely true. Now you might say, Derek, that's insane. That's ridiculous.
No, I believe it.
I maybe, but I can't tell you if I'm fighting a giant animated broom and I'm like, but in like Fabula Ultima, I'm like, of course I am. It's it's the witch's hut, and it's these giant animated brooms, and oh my god, it's a cauldron. Oh no, it's using potion attack. I'm like, yeah, let's go, yeah.
Fabula Ultima. I want to play. We have to play it, man.
Yeah, we can play.
I still haven't played. I've read the rules. It looks
I could
great.
run it for you too. I also
Mark's running. Yeah. All right, I do have to go.
You do have to go.
All right. This could be a good time to stop since we've gone for 2 hours.
We have gone for 2 hours, and Mike's like, "How long are you guys going to go for?" And I didn't want to tell him like way too long, but Mike seemed to have a good time, so he didn't seem to.
A blast, guys. Yeah.
I mean, Mike, I just gotta say, congrats on the Kickstarter. For you and everybody else over there at Arcane Library. I mean, I think the success is well deserved. I don't give kudos out freely or quickly or easily, but ShadowDark is something. It's not just hype. It's well designed. It's well edited. It's well laid out. It's got a cool aesthetic and tone without being like all the board games. And it really is. It's great, and I'm excited. I'm going to kickstart this thing. I want the paper map or the cloth map. I want all the little doodads. I want the slipcover case.
Yeah, thanks for the support.
Yeah. So,
but, hey, before you go, just for everyone's chat, can you just give yourself a nice slap in the face?
Yeah.
Out the door.
We got 100. We got 100. There we go.
There you go.
There it is.
I love that. There we go. Everyone should slap their face. That's going to be your new thing. People are going to be slapping you at Gen Con, Derek.
Look, I
wait. All these hearts are coming into the chat now.
Yeah,
there were like 40 hearts.
Yeah, all the hearts are coming in because they're like, "Yay, Derek slapped himself."
The thing that binds together the people that like me a lot and the people that hate me is the same, which is they both want to see me get slapped. So,
well, that's. Hey, there's always a reason for something.
I know. All right.
Well, do like, subscribe. we will have. I'm not going to be here next week, but we'll still do the show. Mark, we'll figure something out. Mark, you can do it with someone, and then I'll be at GaryCon, which I've never been to, and I'll be seeing Michael and everyone else there probably. And I guess I'll see what all the hubbub's about. And then in 2 weeks, Kelsey will be on the show, and then after that, who knows? Maybe Derek, you can do that show too, and then you can grill Kelsey.
Yeah, Kelsey and I have a good understanding. I'm not grilling her.
I know you're not. I know.
I mean, again, I loved what she wrote in Aaron's book. Remember what she wrote? He was like, he was. We were talking about how he butchered. We were talking about how she butchered the game completely, and she's like, I don't care. And then she wrote in his book, she's like, you're doing it wrong.
Oh, that's right. That was really good. Yeah, she writes very funny things in people's books.
Yeah,
so.
yeah. She's the bee's knees, so she's good people.
Okay. All right. Well, thanks, Mike, for coming on, and have fun for the next month running the Kickstarter, and then the next year fulfilling it.
Of course, don't forget that if you want to battle the zoo, you have to roll for combat.
Oh my God, he did it for us.
That's great. I never liked doing it. It's a little cringe.
It is cringe.
Derek did it.
But no, seriously, check them out. If you like ShadowDark, or if you don't like ShadowDark, you should still check out the books. They're going to be awesome, and I'm looking forward. Again, Bestiary is normally not my thing, but I think this is actually going to be a cool product, and I'm looking forward to it. So,
all right, we'll see you guys next week. See ya.
Or you won't, Steven.
Maybe.
Hey, are you the type of tabletop gamer who keeps playing the same species over and over and over again? And you're kind of sick of seeing the word elf or like variant human at the top of your character sheet all the time? I get it. I'm on like my 13th cat person. That's why I'm excited to state that Battlezoo Ancestries finally is coming out with an answer to your problems, specifically 14 answers to your problems and counting. Living Legends is a fantastic compendium of 14 different new playable species that you can play in your games of D&D or Pathfinder. And it has so many cool species. There's everything from angels and devils all the way down to gargoyles and sphinxes. One of them is even just a swarm of tiny creatures that all coalesce into a single body. And of course there's various subspecies, hundreds of feats to choose from that are associated with your new form. Plus all the hard work of world building is done for you because every species also comes with its own lore and history, so you can figure out your background and your relationship to the rest of the world. Living Legends from Battlezoo Ancestries is now available over on Kickstarter, where you can also get a bunch of fun incentives for helping back the project. There's everything from VTT tokens to help fluidly integrate these characters into a campaign, all the way up to fun peripherals like dice bags, dice sets, chalices, and my personal favorite, a plushie of a psychopomp, which is one of the species you can play. And if you want to get a good taste of what's to come, you can download the free quick start right away. Head on over to kickstarter.rollforcombat.com to check out these living legends for yourself, and unlock a treasure trove of new fun for the whole party.